watching Halenville Live with Fruitcake Tony. Woo! Wow!
All right. And
What's
we
going
are
on, boys
live.
and girls?
Happy
Yeah.
Wednesday. It is a little bit after 9 o'clock, just a little couple minutes past 9 o'clock, March the 8th, 2023. Halenville Live on Wednesday. Fruitcake Tony, Keith Campbell along. What's up, dude?
Same old, man.
How you doing, bro?
Doing good. How you feeling, man?
Good, man.
All well in Whoville?
Getting
In Halenville?
better and better. You got it.
Good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Franken hips holding up better, and you're without the walker now, and you're working on the cane.
No, I'm not having anything, bro.
Good. Cool beans, man. Outstanding.
I take the cane in the car in case something happens. That's all.
Yeah.
No, but things are going well, dude. Good to see you. Always good to see you on Wednesday, man.
Yeah, great to be seen.
Yeah. So about 10 months ago, a year ago, we did a Floyd Rose Forum show all about the Floyd Rose. We had Michael McGuire and Darren Drewek here, and we have them back tonight, and we're going to be talking all things the Floyd Rose, all things guitar parts, their company, period, correct guitar parts. We'll look at that site and what's new with them. There's a lot of new things in the world of the Floyd Rose that we'll soon learn about. We'll also, Keith, we'll do some Van Halen, nearly impossible Van Halen trivia.
Excellent. What are we giving away tonight?
We are going to, as donated, let me show. Nope, not giving away guitar picks tonight, bro. Let me show them.
Not giving away Halenville dollars?
No,
Wow.
$1 million
what do we got?
tonight.
What do you got, man? What's the big score tonight?
Okay, we're gonna have 2 trivia questions. Okay.
Oh, nice.
About the 1 hour mark, and
this must be good then if we got 2 trivia questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go to the post office this week to mail a couple of you guys a reflector set for your Frankie.
And those are the correct reflectors too, I bet.
Yep.
The waffle size oblongs, nice.
Some stickers with them too. Yes.
Excellent.
The decals come with the amount of stars that they should, etc.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, we'll give them out as prizes tonight as donated by Period Correct Guitar Parts. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
For that. Yeah. So big score.
Yeah.
So therefore, Keith, with big prizes, I had to make them really hard. So
yes, and you did. You nailed that.
Yeah. All right. before we bring our guest in, let's go to the chat.
Yeah, roll up the door. Let them all in.
You want to do roll call tonight, Keith?
Yeah. Let's start.
Let's pop it open.
All right.
Boom.
Ooh, let's see. I'll start from the bottom here. I got Andy Carson, our guest from Saturday night. So great to have him on. We got
Andy.
Lenny Lou. We got Christopher Lyasova. We got Ed. We've got a new guest here also. She used to go by SoCal Shell in the Van Halen mailing list. So welcome to her.
Welcome.
Welcome Michelle Marley.
Yeah,
and,
welcome. Good to see you.
We got Dan in New Jersey. Let's see, who else? Thomas Santiago, he's here. I already mentioned Paulie. Get to mention him twice.
What's up, Paulie?
I know Jerry Lyka's here also. I saw him.
What's up, Jerry?
And I also saw the birthday boy in there from Saturday night, Ryan Hall.
What's up, Ryan?
Yeah, and our buddy Lewis, Lewis, he's in the house.
Right on, Lewis. There he is. Good to see you, Lewis.
Loving this pick, brother. Loving it. Thank you very much, sir. And I got my quarter here as well. Yeah, man. But we're not giving away any of these tonight. That's for another night. But thank you for giving me a quarter, brother.
Who else
Did I say Lenny Lou?
Lenny Lou, you did?
Yeah, Lenny Lou.
Dan in New Jersey's here.
Dan in New Jersey, yep.
R2, R3 Lock and Nut, our Van Halen bro is.
R2, R3, yes, brother. Yeah.
All right, if you're just joining, say hello in the chat. It's good to see you. Happy Wednesday. This is Halenville Live. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's open up the green room now.
Let's bring our guys in, ladies and gentlemen. Michael McGuire and Darren Drewek.
Cheers, boys and girls.
Good to see you guys.
Cheers.
Hey, dudes.
Cheers. Nice seeing everyone again.
Going?
Good to see you guys. Welcome.
Good to see you, too.
Yeah, man. How long has it been? It's been about a year, 10 months.
Yeah, May 25th was the last time we're here. Yeah.
All right. Well.
I can't believe it's been that long. It just seems like yesterday, but it's good to be back.
Good. It's good to see you guys.
Good to see you guys too. I know it's been a year. It felt like a couple months, but maybe we'll do once a year. That'd be fine.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So and thank you guys for the prize packs too. Yeah, we'll get to that in about an hour. Yeah,
cool.
we will. So how have you been?
Darren?
Well, more of the usual, busy. I moved since last time. Still collecting Floyd stuff and vintage stuff relating with Eddie, a lot of Boogie Body stuff, and that's kind of what I've been doing lately, a little less than usual. I got a big storage container, so some of it's in storage, but I've been collecting all that stuff lately. Mike has got a few more things, and just kind of researching new stuff we find. There has been a few things since the last time we talked. Yeah. And so that's what we've been doing, just more of the usual.
Yeah, right.
Excellent.
On.
Yeah.
Excellent.
How about you, Mike?
Pretty much same here, just collecting. I mean, every day looking for, new interesting stuff that, you either don't see at all or, stuff that's rarely pops up for sale. And, I do more of the parts stuff, and Darren likes a lot of the, obscure guitars, and he likes a lot of the 27 fretter, stuff, and I like 22 fret stuff.
Yeah, I like getting the hidden stuff. I got something really special on my way. I got the ebony neck that Ed had in summer of '84. It said Van Halen on it. It was full ebony neck. I actually have one relatively similar to that one, and I sent it to Don Ward to kind of fix up and a few things. And I got a few buys coming away, and I got two of those. So I got a few. I don't want to spoil it. That it's a whole nother thing, but I got some very special stuff that Ed might have touched in the past coming my way. So secret deals I found on with some people I know. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah. Hey, listen, I wasn't on the show last time when you guys were here. I was in the chat though. And I have to say, I've been waiting for this for a long time because I've got a shit ton of questions for you guys. But anybody who hasn't seen Darren's podcast and his shows, go to Guitar Historical Archives on YouTube, go to his channel, and you will learn so much about every kind of Floyd there is, okay? Promise. even blew my mind away on the stuff that I learned just watching all of your shows there.
And that link to his link is down below in the description if you want to click down and subscribe and click back.
Yeah.
They'll appreciate that. Yeah.
He just uploaded a video that he made, a year ago or so for the FRT5s.
Yep.
He forgot that it wasn't up there. I mean, I've seen it a year ago, and I was like, yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yeah, there's a FRT5 updated. For people who don't know the one that Ed, I'll try to keep it simple because there's some people who aren't familiar with it. It's the one that Ed played on mainly famous on the 5150. It's called the Whale Tail. Also on the Frankenstrat and a few others. But I made this video like a year ago and I forgot to put it up. So I just put it up recently. People didn't tell me, when are you going to make the FRT5 one? And I did. And since I made it, there are a few more updates, but that's the one everyone kind of wanted. So the videos are very in-depth, like crazy. Like it's like super, it's not for the faint-hearted. Like it's a lot of details. You got to like look at it multiple times. So crazy people will really enjoy it, but the casual person might be like, okay, this is a little too much for me. But if you can always go back on vintagefloydrose.com, you can always go back and check it out later on in bits and pieces.
Yep.
Yeah.
Highly recommend that for anybody who just wants to go down that rabbit hole. It's a must.
I like watching them every so often just to, remember things that you might have forgot. Because it gets confusing, especially with similar models. And
yeah.
You ate one too. Welcome, Patty Deal. Good to see you.
Patty. Hey. Oh, you ate one too. What's going on, brother? And yeah, especially what you were talking about with the FRT3 and all the clones.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's an insane, just dive on that alone.
Yeah, there's a lot of little differences in between them, and people can really get confused as to what model this is or who made it, and is this one a genuine Floyd? Is this one, a copy and everything? So there's little differences in every single one of them.
Everything.
Yeah, where it's nice to have a reference to it that you can see, especially on a site.
Yeah, you point them out beautifully too, and I appreciate that. It's like it just brings me back to when I built my first Frankenstein, and I'm like, what did I have on there? Was that I think I had a 3 on there. So I didn't even have the right Floyd on there for starters.
Right.
On my first build.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no wrong Floyd. No. I mean, as long as it stays in tune, it's a good one. But
yeah,
there's definitely, if you're going for certain year replicas and stuff, there's, you definitely need to know some of the basics of the Floyd models.
Yeah, I'll make it very simple for the people watching that maybe are a little unfamiliar. So there's kind of 3 main Floyds. I would say, if we keep this very, very simple, the first one is the one he had on the B, VH2 black and yellow. It was called the FRT1. Okay, it looks something like this. It was non-fine tuning. Okay, it's now the FRT3. There's no photos of him ever playing it. But the FRT3 is very similar, but the mill marks are different. It's just designed a little bit on the saddles. So basically, FRT1. This was what he, so this is the B. He played in the Frankenstrat and a few others, but let's keep it simple. It was the B later on. And in about 70, 79, maybe late 78. And then another one he had So Mike actually has one that looks identical to it. The next one he had was called the FRT4. This one had vertical fine tuners on it. Okay. These are super rare. Notice how they go straight up, right? Mm-hmm. Just like that, right? Ed's this is a production version of it, Japan only, right? He had that briefly in July 1982. And the one he's most famous for would be this one they call it the Whale Tail. It's made by Hanson Metalworks USA. They made it. So this one right here, it's got the Floyd. It's to the edge of the base plate, and it's made of bent steel. And this is one he had on the 5150 and the Frank Strat. Those are like the three main ones of vintage Floyds. Then he played the German ones later on, and then with the Ernie Balls, it was all something else. He had a Goto, and that's a whole nother ball game. But to keep it very, very simple, those are the three main know about. So in this will be FRT1, FRT4, and FRT5. And then in between that, if you're in Floyd history, there was the FRT2 was like a string through model of the FRT1. Okay, so that gets really confusing. So the FRT2 was a Japanese Floyd Rose before Kramer guitars. He was contracted with the Fernandez. Okay. Right. And they actually made FRT1s, FRT2s, and FRT3s. So the FRT2 is not officially like a Floyd Rose product. It's more of a Fernandez string through model, the FRT1. Okay. Ed never played an FRT2. He might have had some sustain blocks. Ed had some Japanese sustain blocks. So that's getting really technical. And then, so the FRT3, that's like an updated version of the FRT1. This one, the saddles are closed in. So it's a little different. I've never seen a photo of Ed with an FRT3 in any of his guitars. He probably had some laying around, but I've never seen it. But so that's the very, very brief differences between the models without getting psychotically nuts.
Well, if you want to get
that's what we're here for.
There's even differences in between those same models with, different milled saddles differently, and there might have been a couple of people making different parts at the same time that ended up on those models. Like we've seen Darren's his FRT1 has an FRT3 saddle on it. I've seen a few of them with those on it. I don't know if they were just if they had broken or in the set had replaced them with the FRT3 saddles, but I've seen a couple instances where they were on there. So
yeah, so
I have a question for you real quick though. Like for the Star guitar, for instance, what was on that?
That was an FRT1. I know he had an FRT1 at some point. He might have had a fender trim, and then I think at some point he had an FRT. He did have an FRT1 on it later on. Right. I think there might be some people. It's actually been a while since I looked at those photos, but I'm pretty sure he had an FRT1.
What's up, dude?
What's up, Mikey?
Good to see you.
And hi, Janice. But yeah, so that was an FRT1. Okay.
Yeah, he played a lot of FRT1s. Everyone thinks it's just on the VH2, but no, he had it on a lot. He had it on the Star. He had it on some of his mahogany, the Hog guitar. Right, on the Circles, on the Unchained guitar, he had it on. Unchained Circles guitar, he had it on there. There was a time I could name it out. Boom, boom. What am I'm missing some of them, right, Mike? I'm trying to remember.
Well, there's a photo of Eddie in his his bedroom with all the guitars. He's up in the corner and everything. You can see the B, the Franken Strat. He's got the the Hog or the Circles Unchained. Those all had FRT1s on them.
Yeah, Jerry said the Rude. Yep, Rude guitar. Yep,
the Rude. Yeah.
Yeah, Franken Strat. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, up until the FRT4.
Yeah, in '82. Yeah, June of '82.
On them. Yeah.
Welcome, Chili Beef.
Yo, Chili.
And then that's the really only guitar we've seen the FRT4 on was the Frankenstrat for a brief period of time, and then he started messing around with Rockingers for whatever reason. Became the Edward Van Halen model. And then, slowly after that, then the FRT5 started coming in. So it was really really quick from when it shifted from the fine tuner models to the production models. It was very quick.
You brought up a really good point right there, though, with the Rockinger, because that was actually a deal breaker for Ed, basically, and that's what got Floyd in the door with Kramer, right, in June of '82 with NAMM, if I recall.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a big story.
Yeah, there was Dennis Berardi, whatever, had a big, he wanted Eddie to come in. At that point, I think Kramer was using the Rockingers on the guitars. And that was before Floyd was involved with Kramer. And I don't know the time frame, or I don't know who met who and how the deal was made, but there was, somewhat significant printing of Edward Van Halen model as the Rockinger, tremolo. And, but at the time he was using Floyd's. So I don't know how that really came about. It's obviously a very different feeling and looking and acting tremolo. So I think it might have just been a way to get him in. You can have your own guitar, you can have your own tremolo, you can have your own this and that.
The 1982 Atlanta NAMM show, which was, I think it was a summer NAMM show, was the craziest of all time. So there's a lot going down on that day. Okay, if you rewind to August 1981, David Petchlot, the guy who actually made Ed the mini Les Paul guitar, he actually met up with Ed and had like an idea for a fine tuning Floyd Rose, because remember, Ed was using the Floyd Rose, the FRT ones, and he wanted a fine tuning, and he met up with him, and they were talking about it, right? And they were having a plan. And now remember, Floyd Rose is with Fernandez at this time. This is pre-Kramer. There's this weird, crazy pre-Kramer history that's really interesting. So anyway, Dennis Berardi met with them and say, hey, we got this fine-tuning tremolo. Can you? And there's actually a nice interview somewhere on YouTube where actually Dennis talks all about this. It's a really interesting story how it all came to be. And so they went. So they eventually got Ed with the Rockinger. Yeah, they signed they got this all going on, and then they presented these at the 1982 Atlanta NAMM show. And I supposedly David Petchlot, he went to the booth and he's like, Ed, what the heck, man? I thought we had this. He's like, oh, sorry, man. They're at the Kramer booth. Now, what's really interesting is Floyd Rose was also at that NAMM show at the Fernandez booth. So what I think happened, in my personal opinion, this is my theory, is that while Floyd Rose might have been surprised by this with this Rockinger, he was there at the NAMM show, and he had the FRT4 kind of completed by then with the fine tuners. And my guess is he went there, talked to Berardi and all these guys, like, hey, I have a better one right here. He's like, look, I made it, updated it. I got fine tuners on it. It's ready to go. And it was made out of steel, not brass, et cetera, et cetera. And this was June 1982, right? July, the very next month, 4 weeks later,
wow,
Ed is spotted with a gold FRT4 on the Frankenstrat, right? So in my personal opinion, I think there's a lot that went down at that 1982 Atlanta NAMM show. That's just my personal opinion. So I think there's a lot of stuff going on, and I think I'm sure Ed might have seen the FRT4 and I was like, let's give this a try. But they still had the Rockinger, they still marketed and they still use it on their guitars. But after that, then they started going to Floyd Rose, going that method, and obviously the rest is history. Then they developed the FRT5, because the problem, right, with the FRT4 is that the fine tuners are a little close, and so your hands would hit it depending on your playing style. So your hands would hit these fine tuners, where obviously in the FRT5 they bent it back into a whale tail like design, right? So it's a little out of the way, especially on your playing style. And then obviously in '83 the Kramers, they basically made this, and they had the Schuyler factory in Germany produce them, and they sold millions and millions, and Kramer and Floyd Rose changed, honestly, 80s rock and 80s music history forever in that time frame. So it's really interesting how it all came to be. But but no one knew about this, like the FRT4s and the ones like, it's such kind of recent history. No one really understood how deep it all went until the last 4 years, I would say. So it's pretty interesting.
You think the non-fine tuning shallower Floyd was, the first one. That's kind of, without knowing all the history of it, you think that's the first one because it would make sense. That's, didn't have fine tuners, and they eventually had the fine tuners. And for a while, that's all you really saw was, the non-fine tuning shallower Floyds, and then you see the regular ones. So, and then, but, you have pictures of Ed's guitars with prototypes on them, and you think, oh, well, those are just prototypes. But no, I mean, they actually made, a significant amount of production model FRT5 whale tails and the ones, a lot less, but you can find some fours here and there. But it's very interesting. Also, speaking about the fours, if you look at pictures of Eddie playing at the Frankenstrat with that on there, he's got a completely different way of playing. I mean, you can see how it was in his way because he always had the tremolo arm, in his hand while he was playing, but it was behind him. It was behind the fine tuners, so it did really mess with his playing. But Eddie being Eddie, he made it work.
Yeah.
Until eventually the tuners came out.
The only time he had a non-Kramer on a guitar was on what Tony calls now the fruit sickle, which had the Rockinger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Which was this guitar.
Yeah. The multi-tape. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Fruitsicle, I like that.
Yeah.
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 Many people have that one. That one's an oddball one. I like that one though.
Yeah. Tony's got one.
Yeah.
Tony's got one. It's all paint.
Yeah.
Long story with that one. That was a fun.
Yeah.
That was a fun.
That was a fun show, man.
Yeah.
Just
Nice.
Neil, oof, and the hell he had to go through with that. But here was the one big thing though with the Rockingers. Okay, he had the biggest complaint because they were the worst to stay in tune as well. They didn't have any fine tuners and they weren't double locking.
Well, they had fine tuners, and technically it was double locking, but
Yeah.
I don't know how they're pivoting on two small little metal dowels, basically little pins, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know how that would even. I tried one once at a guitar store, and I was afraid I was going to break it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't want to go down.
Yeah. The problem is they were brass, like the brass, it was just didn't hold up. The pivot points couldn't hold up well because made out of brass, and they kind of would shift around once they got worn out a little bit. If it was made out of steel, I think it would have been a little better. And ironically, there are actually two versions of the Rockinger. No one knows this, but the first version on Kramer's, it's got that, the version you see on Kramer's, but later on they actually made a version with pivot points like a Floyd Rose, but it was too late, but
Yeah, it was too late by then.
Yeah, so it is what it is.
Yeah. But the biggest thing too was the locking nut, where it was at, right? There's a lot of examples of the locking up behind the nut, but it could still get pinched in the bone nuts or plastic nuts, whatever you're using. So behind the nut is still 75% double locking.
Right.
So that was basically over once Floyd started making the fine tuners with the locking nut where it was at.
Yeah, and the Rockingers were they were early. Mm-hmm. And what I was gonna say, so with the FRT4, with the Rockinger FRT4, I guess Floyd Rose got in a car accident or some motorcycle accident, and he got hurt pretty bad, and so it kind of delayed the release of the FRT4 a little bit. Is something I read. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a mad rush to get Eddie to sign with something, either with Kramer or whatever, and so that NAMM show you're talking about seemed like it was just kind of like the trade deadline at a baseball game. It reminds me of Moneyball or something.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you this trem with this guitar, and it seemed like it was just. I think it had to be like that though.
Everybody was chasing after him for a sponsorship deal as early as '79 and '80. I mean,
oh yeah.
I mean that San Antonio show, you saw him playing a blue Yamaha with red tape on it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
And the whole Charbel thing, with making the bumblebees,
that fiasco with
Yeah.
Grover.
They seem to make them quite a few years after,
Yeah.
up until probably 82, 83. Eddie got his in 79. So they're making them for 3 or 4 years, to Ed's dismay.
Yeah. I mean, I still remember seeing the guitarist for Rick James playing a Bumblebee on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. Yeah. But what's funny, too, is the Floyds never really... I mean, Charbel could order the Floyds directly from Floyd Rose, right?
Right.
So this is another cool thing. Up until... Well, 83 is when everything changed with Kramer. But Fernandez, throughout the whole time from, 80, 81 to 80... Even after 83, 84, Fernandez was making all the official Floyd Rose products. And I guess they were the only ones to come on guitars as a standard feature. But guys like Charbel, I know Lynn Ellsworth tried to do something with Floyd to get some sort of guitar with the Floyd Rose on it, different models and everything. But as far as the U.S. goes, there was nothing that came standard with Floyd's. I mean, Charbel and Floyd, you would think they would come together, but that wasn't the case. There's very few original Charbels with Floyd Roses on them.
Yeah, a lot of people turned them down. I was reading stuff. Fender, like he was trying to promote it.
Tuner thing, 'cause it's
Fender. I heard Gibson. They all turned him down. Fender said they wrote him letters, said no, we're not interested. And he made them. He was probably in the Seattle area, and he was really making them in small quantities. And the only you can find them on like in 1980. The earliest ones is like in 1980 on some Charbel guitar. If you bought it from Floyd, they would put it on like right around 1980 and like 81 some FRT 3s, but that's all there was. And then Fernandez, that's why he contracted them in like late 1980 and 81, and they started producing the FRT 1s. And then he was contracted with them until 85, right? Even during the Kramer era. So it's pretty interesting. But yeah, it's really interesting because no one was really interested in it until Ed went to Kramer.
And even afterwards, right, you don't see licensed by Floyd Rose patents on any of the Fernandez stuff. You do with everything else that was licensed, but the Fernandez stuff, they seem to have a pass with a lot of that. Even with different models, they went to the head crashers and the head bankers and, the whole, Fernandez. You look at everything else like Goto and Ping, they all had licensed by it. But another thing too is that in the early days, if you buy them, there was no instructions on basically how to install them. I mean, there was instructions, but it just wasn't a normal thing that repair guys would have to do. So a lot of them got messed up. Look at Ed's, original Boogie Body's neck, the big headstock neck. That one got messed up. They say, trying to put on an FRT, a locking nut on it. So these guys, these repair guys, were probably, like, how do I install this thing? And properly, the locking nut itself was, they weren't installed by the top at that point. It was all rear mounted. I've seen some people try to do top mounting with those. They just grind down the mounting holes up on the top. But for the most part, it was very difficult to do. And there was, just seemed like a pain for them to do that until later on when Floyd went with Kramer. Then they actually started selling repair kits, installation kits. So they sold aluminum fixture to hold the necks in there, so they can drill away the edge of the fingerboard to install the nut. And then they had another jig that would line up the screw holes. They had another jig for mounting the post screws. And a couple other things. They came with instructions, so it was, still another 5 years afterwards that they kind of became a profitable for a repair shop to install these things.
Yeah,
and that was the first time they actually did that, selling those repair kits, if I remember. Compared to like other tremolo kits.
Right.
Yeah, it's a fun fact. Believe it or not, the very first production guitars to ever have an official Floyd Rose on it was a Fernandez Neil Schon model, a Bumblebee model. They made a B clone called the VH 135, and then after the Grover thing, they shut it down. But it actually had a real FRT1 on it. And there's a few other Fernandez models. The first ever guitars with production guitars with Floyd Roses. Not talking about buying it from Floyd. Before you had to like buy the FRT ones and send them to Floyd and he would install it, or some other one would have to in the States. But the first ever production guitars were actually these Fernandez. It was a Bumblebee clone, Neil Schon clone, and I have one. It took me forever to find one with an original FRT1 on it, you know, and because usually people rip them off and throw them in the garbage. They don't even know what they are, and they take them off and replace with like an FRT5 or something. And I think they got these Japanese luthiers who are trying to figure out, okay, we got to put these things on. They're a little rough because they weren't 100% sure how to do it. The spacing, I think, is a little bit off. I've noticed this on a few of them. So like the 1981 first ever FRT, when the Japanese made these templates, I think they're just a hair off, and you can see the knife edges on them. One side just a little more rough than the other. So I think they didn't have it correct. It's like they had no help. They're like Floyd something. They're in charge of making mass producing. Well, not really mass producing, making a few of them of the first ever Floyd Roses. That's never been done before. So those first early ones are a little rough, but they do work. They didn't quite get the neck angles right, and they didn't realize how low it had to be or how high to when a finished product. But it gets the job done. But it's really interesting, these early models. But yeah, so it's kind of funny when you think about it. So actually a Japanese Bumblebee illegal clone is the first ever to have an official Floyd Rose FRT1 on it. It's kind of funny when you think about it. But yeah, it's the early on, it was tough. It was tough to install them. People didn't know how to do it.
Oh, that actually started growing the clone products, though, right? That's where they got all the clones after all that work.
Yeah, well,
right.
So yeah, Fernandez, they didn't make it. Fernandez was a marketing company, and they contracted out to other factories. So there's like Goto, and I think Takeuchi was involved in some of them, right? And so they could do. This is pre-internet days, so all these different Japanese factories obviously could clone it and do what they wanted, make their own versions of it. And that's exactly what happened. Is they all branched out and did their own thing, made cheaper versions of it. And some of them actually were really incredible versions, believe it or not, depending on what model it was. Some FRT5 clones are pretty solid, and but yeah, they all branched out, and that's exactly what happened. So, and the Japanese also made a lot of. Fernandez also was working on doing a Frankenstrat. Before the Grover Jackson thing happened, where they shut down the Bs, they had a Frankenstrat model they were going to release called the SX135, and it had a official Floyd Rose FRT4 on it, and maybe it was a Kramer Ad replica. I forgot, but like they were going to release it, and then the Bumblebee Jackson thing happened, and then some of them got released, but they had to hang it up after that.
That was his catalog that was kind of like hand drawn. It looks like a hand drawn one. Is that what the catalog that was in? Yeah, I think so. There's a few of them. And in '83, they made a bunch of. So the Japanese made a bunch of clones to make, and they could get further with it because it's in Japan, right? So like no one knew what they were really doing. It's all under the table, and we didn't even find about until recently. These catalogs. You look at these old Japanese magazines. So they got away with more stuff than they did in the States when making these clones of the B and the Frankenstrat and all that. They like making the Kramer Ad clones too. That guitar as well. The Kramer Ad guitar.
That's a funny thing though, because the States didn't even know that they were doing all these clones either.
Probably not.
No, they had no idea. They
were
importers
of certain guitars, Fernandez and Bernie's and stuff like that. I'm sure that would knew, but I don't think they would probably import them to the States for sale because certain things like that. Maybe they'd even offer them for sale. There's Greco and Ibanez were basically there was the Greco was the Japan only market. Ibanez was the export models and stuff. So, I think Fernandez with that too might have sent some stuff over, but it wasn't like they were sending in shipments every week for coming to the U.S.
There's a lot of store models. They kind of did their own thing and made store models of it and all that. There's this one guy in Europe who's like a Fernandez expert, and he has all this collection. His name's John, and really helped us out with a lot of stuff. Again, the details. But so that's like the basic history of how all that rolled in all that and the Japanese stuff is good to know because it's kind of like the hidden history. It's like, what did they do? How much did they know? How much were they involved in the development? Because they were working with Floyd and, early on, possibly with Ed too a lot. So.
And you can even see the evolution of it, just like on the notches where the post holes would go. You can see how everything changed, just very minuscule, but you still see, and like you were saying, even with the blocks, they had them beveled or angled, and then they changed them because they were able to make them flat finally.
Right. I think that was just another step in milling it, because you look at the springs and the spring holes in the blocks, they're supposed to be at an angle, right? So It's either angle the whole thing, cut it off, and then drill the holes, or just drill the holes at an angle and keep it flat. So there's a lot of little progression with how things were machined. Either if they're gonna make a bunch of these, they got to streamline it somehow. That's why you see the differences between the FRT1 and FRT3 saddles is the FRT1s were all hand machined or on big CNC mills, or it might have been right at the beginning of CNC, but later on then everything was cast because it's production issues, trying to make as many as you can for as cheap as you can, and for the most part it was still mixed back then with castings and things that were either machined and bent and up until I guess all the base plates were pretty much until the FRT4, the Fernandez FRT4s, those were cast. FRT5 Fernandez was another rare one that was cast also. But then after that, then they went back to bending the plates and machining them. So I think that, it's just interesting how they were still trying out different things and seeing what worked and what didn't work. And
one thing regarding Ed that I always think, and I mentioned this on the last time we did this series, Ed had a huge preference for steel big blocks. So all the blocks, they make titanium, tungsten, copper, bronze, and they all make a big difference to the sound. It's like choosing pickups. But so when he had the FRT1 on the B, Frankenstratton, rude circles, it was a hot rolled steel sustain block. Okay. And on the FRT, it was usually 42 millimeters. They're pretty thick. They got a lot of beef to them. They have the bottom low end is like a little tighter on it. So it's when you hit the string, it's not so spongy. I kind of like that. Furthermore, so besides the FRT4 with that one, briefly had a cast. That one's really different than everything else, that we're talking about. But on the whale tail, so this is the one, the 5150, right? Now this one has a cold rolled steel sustain block. Okay, so it's cold rolled, not hot rolled like the FRT1. Also, the base plate is bent steel. You can actually, on it, you can see the bend marks on it. It's going to be tough to see, but you can see so it's like a flat piece of steel, right? And they literally bend it, right? And so when we talk about casting, they put it literally like metal into the cast and like a molding, right? Like a wax molding. So, but these are bent steel. So Ed, on the 5150 Frankenstrat, so I think this is still on the 5050 today, yeah. And on the Frankenstrat, he had this style on from 83 to 1996, I think. And then and it's got a different sound. This has a different sound to it than the German ones, right? So the German, when I say the German Floyds, that's like the stand, like on the Kramer guitars, Floyd. if you like a mid 80s Kramer with original Floyd, that's like German Schaller made, right? Those ones are cast and those ones had a brass sustain block. They sound a little different. No, those they're great trems too. They're really great. But the sound of I like, Ed, these ones on the collar, right? It's got the bolt on it, right? So you can't just take it off. You can't take it off easy, right? So they're a little different in that aspect. But these sound very different to me. They have more of a smoother, mid-rangey sound, not as much bite as on the top end. You said they play a huge role in the tone. Now that being said, I always hear people, issues. So these old Floyds, like this, the FRT4, what are some issues? Okay, so some people say this might a pro Oricon. Okay, so when you get the newer Floyds, they have the springs that come up, and it hits, so this stays up like this. See, right now it's like it's floating there, but with the spring tension it goes up, right? Now this was an issue, and also on the FRT4, which is why you see the springs naturally come up, push them up like that. The problem with the whale tail in the FRT4 is if you do a big dive bomb on it, okay, the strings were loosened, and these can also get loosened little bits. When you go back to pitch, it's just a little out of tune sometimes. And that's if you just do a big dive bomb. If you just do a little bit, it's not going to do anything. So that's why they got those springs there. Okay, so Ed had these kind of bars, right? So it was bolted down like that. The problem with these is you can't just take them off easy, right? So like in the Kramer Floyd, they're a little easier to take off, especially later on the Schaller style collars. Now, one other thing with the whale tails is the fine tuners on these, in my opinion, are just a little loose. They're really easy to take. I mean, when you got locked up and you hit their hand, they seem to move a little easier, especially compared to the Japanese Floyds and like the German ones. So like in my opinion, like when I play it, if you hit it just a little bit, it seems to move a little more movement. It's not a huge deal, but like I think there's one of Ed's guitars in the Hard Rock, I forget which one it is, but like all the fine tuners are like off of it, and like these things come off super easy. Like you gotta be careful because if you just have it laying around and it's loose and it moves, that's one thing I notice. So
there's nothing keeping them in place. You can just screw them right out. They're not.
Exactly. So that's kind of the differences between this and the modern ones. So yeah, I think they are trying to like improve things. And actually on the FRT4, this was an issue. There's actually photos of Ed with the FRT4, I think, that he has rubber bands going across it on the whole way, and that's because when Ed was doing a dive bomb, it'd go out of tune with a big dive bomb. So that kept these things in place. So when he did a dive bomb, it came back, it stayed tight, and there's a less tendency to go out of tune with a big dive bomb. So that was something they fixed with the German ones,
Yeah, before that, they just had a big O-ring that would just go a loop around the back of the screw, and then on the top of it, it would go around the fine tuner and then back down and just loop around and create basically the spring tensions. But they had spring tensions before that, didn't they? Or, I mean, especially during the FRT5s, there were spring tensions on
yeah, actually, the first time you see them, that might have been a Japanese Fernandez possibly invention, because actually the first time you see it is on the Fernandez Japanese version FRT5, so they could have possibly maybe invented that. Yeah, the Japanese.
There was some that did, some that didn't.
Jay Turner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple questions actually. I was looking at, but talk about the blocks. There's a lot of snake oil with what sounds better. Is this going to sound better than this or whatever? Shamefully, I just kind of recently put on a steel block and did some of my own experiments with brass and steel, and I've done that before, but I hadn't done it in a long time. It was just like somebody said, Lenny Luce says, which sounds better, cold or hot steel? I don't know the difference between cold and hot, what sounds better or not.
It's Lenny, I'll answer that. I use both. It's hard to say. They both sound very similar. it's kind of tough because I use the hot rolled on my FRT 1 and 4s, which the base plate's different than the FRT 5. I would say they sound very similar. If I was going to pick, I'd said maybe the cold roll, but I'm not 100% sure. It could be the base plate. I would say they sound very similar.
Right, and the EVH brand and Floyd Rose has a steel sustain block. I don't think they do. I think they're all brass. All of the, as far as I know, all of the Schaller stuff has all been brass. And if you get to the specials, some of them are zinc, I think, and some of them are just pot metal. But as far as I know, I've never seen anything but brass on a Schaller made. That would include the EVH branded Floyds, unless you get to obviously the titanium ones. But you know.
Yeah. Also, someone had a question. Where was that question at? Oh, some of the MIJ, so the made in Japan Floyd's license being yeah, the Japanese, like the licensed Floyds, like in the late 80s, some of them were incredibly innovative and amazing. Actually, not all of them. Some of them are a little cheaper, but some of them, the Japanese actually improved a lot of things with the German ones in like the mid-late 80s on a few of the models. Yeah, some of them are pretty impressive.
And then kind of going back to my experiments, you know, with brass and the bigger brass blocks and everything, you know, it's kind of like matching your pickup, your guitar, you know, with a pickup and your amp. You know, it's, you know, one thing might give you a darker tone. The brass for me gave me a darker tone, and it was smoother a little bit, which, you know, sounded fine with how you set your amp and, you know, and the materials you make the guitar out of or whatever. But then when I switched to the steel, it made a huge difference. It actually kind of, you know, I didn't measure it on a dB or anything, but it felt to me like it boosted the output a little bit, raised the volume of it a little bit, and it did give it more of a brighter tone, which I think that guitar needed because it was pretty dark sounding to begin with. Plus, I had a custom Duncan pickup in there, which, you know, like a JB, it has a little more mid-range to it. So it's all about matching. That's what it was doing. That's all he was doing, was matching, you know, the tone of this to the tone of that, the playability of this to the playability of that. It's all going to match, right? It's all going to come into harmony. And I think he did that probably better than anybody, you know, with the things.
The steel captures a different frequency response. The steel kind of captures a little more low end and others. The brass is a little different. And every steel, if you change on the blocks, it does make a difference. That's why like Phil Collin of Def Leppard, he likes the titanium Floyds, full titanium. I actually got Ed's story with that later on, the full titanium Floyds, and he can't keep the titanium block on it. He usually puts like a brass block or something because he said it's just too much of something, you know. The titanium
too bright.
The titanium,
too bright, maybe.
Yeah, like the titanium, like really, it captures a lot of stuff, you know, and you know, and so like he's got it really depends on the pickup, and it's just like anything, he's kind of matched up with something else. The one I actually got it. It's so Ty Sonics made the titanium Floyds, which actually resulted in Ed, because Ed was at a NAMM show in like the mid 2000s and seen a titanium blocking nut, and that's kind of what sparked actually, from what I guess, the titanium Floyd Roses, which are very briefly made. Because he liked the titanium. Then even today, I think he still uses the insert, because the titanium insert blocks and a lot of the stuff. But like, yeah, I mean, the titanium is really nice, but like that, the way that reacts to it is really interesting. Like you got to tame it down sometimes, in my opinion. But some people like it the way it is. But yeah.
Mike was saying backstage, you have a full titanium Floyd.
Yeah, I do. It's in storage it's in storage right now. It's full titanium. It's a Tysonics one. I was gonna bring it. I got so much stuff in storage, but they were made in like late 2000s, because it started with Tysonics, this company. So they made a locking on it. I guess it's some NAMM show, and Ed was curious, and I guess Floyd Rose. It's a rough story, I guess, from what I heard, but they made a deal to kind of produce these things in like 2009, and very few were made. And I guess there are some issues with the company, and so they kind of hung it up with them. So it's a pretty rare model, but yeah, it's a crazy model. They're pricey. They cost like $1,000 back in the day, and now it's they're still pricey.
There was a few hundred of those made, and I remember when they first came out. I was working at it was a big deal. It was a cool thing, but I think even then, brand new, they were $9.99. They're still on Floyd's site, which is really weird because they've been out of stock and they haven't been making them for a long time. But that's another thing that didn't catch on. Another thing that didn't really catch on too, unfortunately, was the speed loader, which I think it. I was talking about that earlier. I think that was a really cool thing, and because of one or two little things that ended up not happening anymore, and
that was a great trim. So the speed loader was meant to like change strings in 5 seconds, 5-10 seconds, boom, and they had like 2 bullet ends, and you place it in, and you're ready to go. The problem is, I
had to buy this guitar because I wanted one for myself. I have a trim, but the problem with the trim is that underneath it goes down real deep, so you need a real big recess. So I couldn't put that on one of my guitars, and I wanted to try it, but literally, I mean, if you watch the videos on the Floyd Rose site, it's literally just, I don't know if you can see this here, but just pull down the saddle there, push this thing up, and if you weren't sliding all over the place, it comes out like that, and there's a string.
Wow.
Literally just push it in there. Put it in the saddle, and it's in tune. It's ready to go.
It's incredible.
Saddles. It's really cool, and
that's a roadie's wet dream. That's a guitar tech's wet dream. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is.
Why it didn't happen, and there was
there was a lawsuit.
From what I heard, there was. I was actually on a jury duty, and it and the case was not on this one, but the case was very similar to this. It was basically all over one screw, and I think this in here, there's basically 2 fine tuners in here. There's obviously the main fine tuners on the trim, just like every other one, but to compensate for string stretching and differences, with everything, because this is a double end ball or bullet string. There's a little set screw in here that pushes the bullet string back and forth just ever so slightly, and I think that was the cause of the issue. And I heard at that time Floyd wasn't really interested in fighting it or something. I don't really know, but
they had issues with the strings. So I heard they made a lot of money in strings, and they had to throw them away. And
I think that happened before they were even introduced. They ordered a bunch of strings, and they were the wrong length, and they had to basically dump them all and kind of wash that. But yeah, I wish they still made the strings.
Yeah, someone had that question. They said, they don't make the strings anymore. But what you can do, they're expensive. What you can do instead is you just buy Fender bullet strings with the brass ends. And if you have a normal, it'll only work if you got regular tuners on the headstock. Just use those strings and they'll work. They're actually really great trims. It's just that if you want to use the original intention, you have to buy the original strings, and they're pricey. It's tough, because they stopped making them.
Hopefully, whenever the patents run out or whatever, they'll kind of come back again, and maybe the price of the strings will come down. Maybe they'll start making them again. Who knows? But
what's the time frame on that though? How long till those patents wear out?
I don't know.
Long time. Well, that was.
It was.
I'm not sure
already. So it could be within a couple of years, 5 years maybe. But I think that might be something to look for coming up.
Stir the pot for the future.
Yeah. Hopefully, it's a great thing, man. It's a great idea.
Right on.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
idea,
it's for someone playing in a band who's just in the bars with no guitar tech. Boom, done. You break a string, but it just there's 2 fine tuners on it, right? There's the regular fine tuners and they called a macro fine tuner. Yeah. So I think the lawsuit resulted. It was underneath, kind of by the low part of the bass plate. You can kind of, and I guess forgot the guy's name. I think it was McCabe, who said he actually patented that with the Sophia. I could be wrong. The Sophia Light tremolo guy, and they had a disagreement, and that's when they kind of had to cease making it. I could be wrong, but I think that's kind of what happened.
Right.
So that was it.
Yeah. Guys, we're going to shift gears here for a moment or two. We're going to play some nearly impossible Van Halen trivia. We are.
Times two.
Times two.
Yeah, man. This is going to be good.
So let me show you what we're giving away tonight. We are giving away 2 prize packs, would include your Frankie reflectors, and each one of them will get a sticker set for your build or upcoming build.
Yep.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
And when we get off a break, Michael and Darren will find out what's new in the Floyd Rose world. We'll look at both you guys' sites. Also, a lot of new stuff up there. Excited to hear about that. Keith, let's get into some trivia. What do you think?
Oh yeah, let's do this.
All right.
Kids, you better have your thinking caps on for these.
All right. So I'm gonna have to go to the post office for this one. I got to mail Keith stuff anyway. So, all right. So if you are one of the winners, let me know which winner you are. There is a email address down below, Trivia Winners email. Email me your name and address, Trivia Winner 1 or Trivia Winner 2, and I'll mail you out one of those prize packs. So the first one we're going to play for the 5150 and the reflector set.
Mm-hmm.
Sound
And
good?
it is a correct reflector set. It's the waffle oblongs. And the round ones are the correct ones also.
Mm.
Very, very
Those are fun
important.
just to stick anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so get ready to type, kids. Good luck. Put your thinking caps on. Had to make them hard tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Just for you. Call it nearly impossible Van Halen trivia for nothing, man. Come on, man.
I'm Skippy.
We have to uphold that. All right, the first one. Get ready. Here we go. Question number 1. Good luck. All right. A chimpanzee and 2 little people bodyguards greeted guests at the gate as they arrived at this historical Van Halen concert that you already know the date to. Give the date of this concert.
Sounds like a joke, doesn't it? An opening line to a joke. A chimpanzee and 2 little people.
Walk into a bar.
Yeah, these are
it's
tough
not
trivia
totally
questions.
impossible. It's not totally impossible.
Just
right,
looking
Come
for
on.
a date is all. A
A
date.
date. That's all. The date.
Oh. Just the date. Chimpanzee and 2 little people. Greeted guests.
Oh! Bada bing.
Bam!
Turner.
Right off the bat.
Bam! Jay Turner.
What? Jay Turner.
There you go, brother. Yeah, that's for you. Cheers. Congratulations, man.
So how on earth
Hey.
did he know
He knows his shit,
the
man.
date? There's your answer.
Yep.
Holy
I didn't know
moly,
they were
Jay.
in all those shenanigans early on. I figured 84 was the big production of, David E. Roth and all of his sidekicks and everything,
Oh, he had them long before that.
Is there a picture of this somewhere?
There's not, but it is the show at the California World Music where they hired a bunch of white limousines to take all the employees and their families, and it was the tank show.
Yeah, the LA Coliseum show. Yeah, the one where they crushed the Yellow Beetle with the tank.
Mm.
Yeah.
Attention, Aerosmith. Would you please move your vehicle, or it will be moved for you?
All right.
That's the first
Well.
one. Good job.
That was
Yeah.
that was quick, Jay Turner.
Yeah. Jay's
So
got to know his stuff. Come on, he's got his own band, man. Come on.
so Jay is the mighty bass player for the mighty band Mean Street here in North
That's
Carolina.
it. Yep.
Yeah.
I'd wear
All
the
right.
shirt, but I already wore it on Friday, and it's still in laundry.
All right. So let's go, since I have everyone's attention, let's go to the
Yeah.
next question.
So he's got the 5150 sticker set.
Yeah.
Right?
So Jay,
Okay.
go make a sandwich.
Yeah.
Go to the fridge.
Yep. Take a pit stop.
We'll ask this next. Man, I thought that was the hard one of the two.
Yeah,
Keith.
that was.
Yeah.
All right, get ready to type, kids. So this next one is a reflector set and the 1984 build, which I have.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good thing Steve Nowicki's not here. He's already got one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one might be a little easier, but maybe not. Maybe we got them reversed.
All right,
Maybe not.
I will keep you no longer. Here we go. Question
Don't give him
number
any,
2.
No help, though.
This Van Halen song is in an unknown tuning. Add tune to the melody in his head. He also recorded this song with a guitar that was only the 4th in existence at the time. Name that tune. And I was told that this is a layup.
Oh, there we go. Oh, you 812 got it right away.
Where is he at? There it is.
Yep.
There's your winner. Right on.
Congratulations, man. All
Good
right.
job. Right on.
Good job. So they weren't totally impossible. We're
No.
going to have to up our game even more now.
I
Oh,
know.
shit.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, Keith, I did stump them, so I made it too hard. You know.
Yeah.
I want you guys to win, but I don't want to make it a
Which
layup.
one was that? Because there was one I was, I thought I knew. I didn't know. I had no idea. Oh, there was one. Oh yeah, Jape. I think I knew that one, but not entirely. I think it was Jape.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a couple weeks.
Yeah, that one took everybody about 10 minutes to get.
Yeah, because
15
I've heard
actually.
that for a while, and I thought it was
Dan in
the
New Jersey
effects.
won that one.
I thought it was the
Yeah.
effects Ed added to his to the sound or whatever.
Yeah.
Some video.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they actually when they first started the website, VanHalen.com, they would have the albums, the bios, the live tours,
Yeah.
and then they had one little section that was called the Jape, which was all like the little bling, and it would have like the little wallpapers and shit like that
Oh, cool.
that you put on your computer, all your Van Halen related wallpaper and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So let me give a shout out to our winners for tonight. OU812, congratulations. Go check out his YouTube channel. He talks Van Halen a couple of times a week. They're on tomorrow. Him and our friend R2R3 Lock'n'Nut, I'm sure, is going to join him. That's tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Thursday.
Ooh.
I think I saw that. So go check them out over there. Yeah.
I'll be in the
And-
chat for that one.
Jay Turner, good to see you and congratulations. Right on, Jay. We'll be seeing Jay. Let me show everybody this.
Yeah,
We'll be
you got a
showing-
card for this, don't you?
We'll be showing Jay and his band. Where is it at?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. All right, yeah. So just next month, coming up, April the 8th, we're taking Show Me Your Pick on the road
Mm-hmm.
to Greensboro to see Mean Street live.
Yeah, Tony's going live, and then me and Brendan are going to be back here in the studio. While the cat's away, the mouse will play.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Yeah. So congratulations to our winners. I'll be going to the post office in the next day or two. And yeah.
Okay, there's a question right here. I think Polly Walnuts, Paul Martino asked, I tried replacing my fine tuners with brass and had a difficult time getting the bridge to grab the threads, and then they would seize up. Your original Floyd Rose parts, why would this happen, and can it be remedied? All original Floyd Rose with fine tuners have once they screw them in, they mess with the threads so that it's hard to pull out, right? The bottom thread usually. So, you usually have to almost ruin the fine tuners that you're pulling out to get it out. But then it says he had a difficult time getting the bridge to grab the threads, and then they would seize up. Sometimes the brass, I've actually had this problem. Sometimes the brass, I don't know if this is the issue you have, but sometimes the brass gets oxidized, and it could actually seize up a little bit. I don't know if that's the problem you're having, or maybe just maybe they're different thread. They're 5mm thread usually for the Floyd Rose parts. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
some of like the mid '80s Floyds. So if you're buying like new parts, I can't always guarantee. I sometimes get questions like that between like the Korean ones and the German. There is a period where it sometimes didn't always work out between other models once in a while, and that could be it as well, especially if you got them from, depends on the year. Mm-hmm. They usually do, but not all the time.
With the specials, the Korean made ones, a lot of the a lot of the fine tuners just they feel like they're not smooth at all. They feel like they grab a little bit, and that's just the quality of the threads, really. I don't know if replacing them with anything else is going to be better, but you could try retapping them, I guess. But a lot of people have that problem. The feel of the fine tuners on the cheaper end models, if that was gone, and maybe better tuning stability, which, I would probably just, let's get into that a little bit. I think people have that question a lot.
Yeah.
So if you're going to update a cheaper Floyd Rose, let's say a special or 1000 series, the Korean made ones, what can they do to make it better? Right. So everybody's problem is the fine tuners don't feel right. They have a lot of problems with either tuning stability. The nut can play a part in that, but let's get it straight. They're lower quality. It's lower quality. I don't care if they're saying it's the same materials. It's just not, right?
No.
So the pivot points or the pivot screws, whatever, I would replace those first. I think they're junk. I would get original Floyd Rose screw inserts first, and then the fine tuners obviously don't matter as far as tuning stability, I don't think, because they're hard to turn in anyway. So try that, and then try the nut, and I think that'll solve 90% of the problem.
Yeah, a lot of it depends. Like if it's fully floating, what I mean by that, if you go pull up and down, right? Like Eddie had his blocks. You could block, which is pull down only, right? So I mean, if you got a fully floating Floyd, you got to have a great base plate with strong knife edges. Just go with the original Floyd. Don't just like buy a Floyd special and then spend $60 on titanium parts like inserts and all that because of base plate. You can't fix the base plate on that. So what I would do is, this is if you're gonna especially play, just buy the original and then do the titanium insert blocks. I like doing that, and that's usually a good start. Ed was using a lot of that near the end of his career. He was using the titanium inserts, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, Robert Radford had a question for you on the FRT5 reissues. Are you going to be having any updates on those?
The FRT5 tributes. Yeah, I have 3. So those I use FRT7 base plates, and then I have the saddles that I make. So I have 3 of them in the works, basically waiting for saddles to get back from chrome plating. But I only have 3 of those, and I think 2 of them are already spoken for.
There you go, Robert.
So
come grab it while you can.
Maybe, yeah. And those will be available when they're available to me. You know, I search high and low for parts to make those available. Sometimes they'll be in stock, sometimes they won't.
Let's look at your site, Michael. I'm gonna bring it up here.
Okay.
Period correct guitar parts. Let's have a peek, and you can guide me around here.
Shell, if you're taking off, take care. Thank you for coming, and we can't wait to see you next week.
Yeah, welcome. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
The Shell's from the old Van Halen mailing list, so always good to have some old blood in the house.
Cool.
All right. So cool site, Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah. This website kicks ass. You got everything you could ask for. And I need to actually order some stuff here because old Black Betty here is got the lower trim posts. It still likes to creep out a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's screwing up my tuning it all completely. So I did the whole thing with the toothpick and everything, and it's still just not right.
What sucks too is that a lot of these, I've seen a lot of especially the Frankenstrat Stripe series, you know, they have the bushing on them, and they're so close. The bushings are so close to the pickup that, you know, they're cracking and everything. I mean, that's
right.
Soft woods like basswood, it's going to happen. I see that happen all the time, and it sucks. But, you know, that's the thing with having that much pressure next to very little wood.
Yeah.
And everything, and you know, I don't know what the solution is to that, but you know, some people swear by the screw posts. They're thinner, they're smaller, they're not pushing as much wood really. It's just, you know, a screw, and depending on the wood, you know, you're gonna have problems, but that might be another solution. But yeah, so I started collecting parts for myself for a build, right? I wanted a whale tail for a 5150 build I was doing, and quickly realized how difficult that was. So kind of beginning of COVID, I've always built replicas, but I was never too serious on what Ed actually had on his guitars, or we didn't even know at the time, or you know, you think it's just a one-off. And so I kind of got a little more into finding the real stuff, and you know, I started collecting for myself for, you know, builds I was doing. And every once in a while I'd see on the Facebook groups or whatever that, you know, hey, I'm looking for this, or does anybody have one of that? And I'm like, yeah, I got 2. I like buying things in 2. I like, you know, why have one when you can have 2? So then I started buying parts for friends and finding different stuff, and I like doing that. And by the time I was ready to start building, I had a bunch of parts for stuff that I didn't even, you know, sometimes you got to buy a lot of 3 just for one thing that you really want or whatever. So that's kind of how it got started. And then, you know, I didn't really know what to do with anything, but I used to have McGuire guitars, was a relic. Was building relic strats and tellies and stuff like that. So I got tired of doing all that. This was something else to fill in my guitar needs. So I started I like finding original stuff, period correct stuff when possible.
There you go.
You know, these aren't 59 Les Pauls or anything like that, but they're starting to be scarce. A lot of stuff is starting to be scarce.
Yeah.
And so I like having these parts available for everybody. And then I started saying, well, I ended up finding some whale tails and some other. That's what started my Floyd Rose craze, really. I called Darren one time, or emailed him and said, "Hey, do you have any Floyd? You have any whale tails? Like you might have 3 or 4 available." He's like, "No, I don't." I'm like, "Oh man." So
I got 2. I got 1 for sale right now. They're not easy to find. Like Mike and I just search constantly for Floyds, and the reason I got a Frankenstrat that I'm trying to get as close as possible to Ed's. And, what people don't understand is the Frankenstrat against any of Ed's guitars. If you got the money, you're wealthy. Let's say you want a 54 Strat, you can buy it. You want a 59 Les Paul, you can buy it. The thing is with Ed and the Frankenstrat 51 and 50 any of his guitars, you just can't get exactly what he had, right? You got to like cobble together all this stuff, which what he had, and a lot of those parts, if you want to get really accurate, is tough to do. That's what's so special, So like what's great about these what Mike's doing here is that people will go nuts with the paint jobs and getting exactly like Ed's and all that. And it's not easy to do it right. To do it right is not easy at all. And anyone who's ever tried, it's not easy and it's not cheap, right? So if you put thousands of hours to do a Frankenstrat relic job, and then you put like a Floyd special on it, it's like, what's the point of that? You might as well at least put original Floyd on it, or get this and that. So I think that's become the next thing, people doing their relics, but then wanting to be even the hardware. I think was kind of ignored in the past a little bit by some, but now I think people really understand it better now of what hardware was actually used in the Frankenstrat and all these guitars. And so there's like this new market coming into place of like people want what Ed had on his guitar, and it's not easy to find this stuff. That's the thing. Yeah,
exactly.
So great.
And I posted on my comment below, I wanted an FRT3 and I said that as a joke, a gold one. What I really need though is a gold FRT4, just like this one,
Yep.
And I see you have it listed as coming soon. So I will be ordering
It's an
one.
idea, yeah. I mean, the saddles are basically the same. The block is. I found a prototype FRT4 just like that, but chrome. And there's a lot of weird things going on with it that if I were to, make parts for those, I wouldn't necessarily do. I would, do a more like, get the base plate kind of, accurate and everything like that. But it was cast as one piece, so obviously that's not gonna be anything good. So
it's
block
difficult.
it all.
yeah.
Ed, so the one on that picture, Keith, the gold one, there's only 2 known in existence. Well, there's more made, but one is Ed's. We don't know where his is, and Mike has the other one, chrome one. That was Steve Lukather of Toto had one, and so like they're so rare. There's 2 different prototype versions actually, and I'm not even gonna go into details on that, but like those FRT4s are like, you're not gonna find one. You can find a production one in Japan. They're made for 4 months, but even them are just insanely difficult to find. I got a couple, and it took me just forever to find. People didn't even know these things existed until 2 years ago. So like it's funny because Keith, like back in the day, those gold FRT4s, there's a lot of people back then. They're like, "What is this? There's something with this. Like, this is different than the other Floyds. Like, what is this?" But there's no way to like get those details 20, 30 years ago. So it's really interesting, and it's like finally coming to light. It's like, whoa, this. If you look at the patent in 1982, it's actually there. But like back then, this wasn't common knowledge. So like. Now I like the FRT4 is my favorite. It's my favorite. Here's why. It's not as fluid. If you do big dive bombs, it doesn't work the best. But what I like about the FRT4, and this is why Floyd made it that way, is the fine. It doesn't take up as much room on the body. So like it doesn't. That was Floyd's original purpose. So when you put it on a guitar, it's not so big, right? And actually, this is the Japanese. This is the production version that was only made 4 months. So Ed must have complained that it was like too close. They actually extended it a little bit, back here in the production. But then it was like they took it out of production. Then they stopped immediately when they got the FRT5. So it's like, But the FRT4s, I like how they look on the guitar because they don't take up so much room, like because the FRT5 is bent back, So FRT4, if you just do a little dive bombing and you don't got a crazy hands when you're playing, it works perfectly fine.
Hey,
That's exactly what I was looking for too, and it's just aesthetically more pleasing looking.
Yeah. That was the intention, actually. That's why Floyd. Because like a Fender trim, it's not so bulky looking, the FRT4, right? It just sits there. Yeah. It does a job, right? It just a little bit of fine tuning, and it's my favorite, But if like it doesn't have the finger springs the tuner. It doesn't have. If you do super deep dive bombs, you get some issues. But if you just not use it too crazy, it works absolutely perfectly fine, and they sound incredible. Yeah. But that's tough to find. It's Mike has the one exactly like Ed's except chrome, and to me that's the holy grail Floyd Rose right there. Is the FRT4 prototypes. I got one that's it's a different version that KK Downing of Judas Priest said. There's two different versions I got done. He's got the one Ed has. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I got it right here if you want to zoom in or something. But
yeah, highlight them.
Yeah.
There we go.
So as Darren said, there's a couple different versions of what we would call the prototype, and this one was a surprise really because as soon as I saw it, I asked Darren. I said, "What the hell was that?" He says, "Like, get it." I'm like, "Okay." So when I get it.
I had my wedding like that day or something, so I wasn't focused. Lucky I was like getting married that day, otherwise it'd have been mine.
Yeah, I was really debating on whether to pull the trigger, but I'm glad I did because it's just I don't know if you're gonna ever find one of this again. But
no.
So the base plate and the block are one piece. I don't know if they're cast together at the same time or they were silver soldered together. I think it's silver soldered. You can kind of see a little bit of, extra metal out there. But it was all chromed at the same time, obviously, because it's one piece now. So it was all chromed at the same time. And then when I noticed that, I called Darren. I said, that's probably why Ed's gold one has a brass block. Well, it's not brass. It's just that it was all gold plated at the same time. And also look at the bottom, how it's half round right here and then goes flat on top. So it's a unique block with a unique base plate. Doesn't extend out past the base plate like the Fernandez ones, like Darren was showing. It goes straight up. It's all things with the USA stuff is that people ask all the time, how can I tell if it's USA or if it's Japan or anything else? Well, the screws would be Imperial if they were made in USA, and they would be metric if they were overseas. But that's not always the case because the whale tails are actually a little bit mixed. They're the whale tails have mainly metric screws and everything sizes, but there's a couple little things that are Imperial. But
so Ed's had the half curves on the block also.
It's hard to see, but I think he did.
It is. Yeah, it's just like Mike's. Mike's.
Yeah, the springs are going right here, so you can't
at
really see it,
at first I thought it was rounded on because there's only one photo of Ed you can see behind it, and it looks like it's brass, but it's actually gold plated. I thought it was rounded up there, but Don mentioned that it is flat like that, and it makes sense because it'd be the same cast molding. So it's just like Mike's. It's a rare, awesome piece, and we don't know where Ed's is at, but that's a really unique place, not only in Van Halen or Ed's history, but tremolo history in general. It's a really unique piece right there. It's the evolution of the fine tuning, double locking tremolo, so it's like really incredible historic piece right there. Yeah. It's just like Ed. So if you want,
be hard to see, but sorry, Darren, but here's the these are the original O-rings that were on here, holding the springs up, just like Darren was saying, without the plate.
The rubber bands, you mean?
Yeah.
The rubber bands are still on there. They broke off right here. I don't know what year, but yeah, everything's all original as far as I know. There was one replaced saddle, as far as I know.
Yeah, based on some research, we actually believe it used to be Steve Lukather's from Toto, because there's a picture of him. We're pretty sure that's might be his old one. Mm-hmm.
I was told it could have been his because the gentleman I got it from used to be a he was an employee at Valley Arts, and he remembers it was either Eddie's or Lukather's, and I think it was Lukather's because there was a picture of the chrome one on his Strat, and that's just, you know.
It's strange because I was
knows?
just looking at a picture of Lukather back then. I think Glenn LaFerman took a picture. He was in front of a Bradshaw box and he was playing that guitar.
Oh.
In the picture. It was like, holy crap. So
Send
that
it to
could
me
be
if
that
you
tremolo.
still have it or whatever. Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I'll find it. I think
okay.
Scott Yeager's got it on his WDFA site on Facebook.
Oh, cool.
Mike, let me ask you, since you've had this site up and you've been after these rare parts like that, what have and you too, Dan, what have you guys seen in the world? I just got a new guitar build. I've got a couple now. It seems to be here lately very, very popular. What's the trend out there from a couple of years ago to now, Mike?
As far as which?
As far as the popularity of needing guys like you to have these parts, to have these builds.
Oh, good question. I don't know.
I'd say it's got dramatically. I mean, it's really interesting because there's always been guys trying to parts replicating Frank and all those guitars, right? But it was really difficult back then, you know. They'd look at magazines, and now you get all this information and people understand what exactly they need. And you know, like I said, it's fun because it's a project. You get to do it. You get to make your own way. You don't have to get crazy with it. And like you can just have a fun time making a Frankenstrat. But there's a lot of people who, like I said, you just can't buy. It's not, you know, if you got the money, if you want a 54 Strat, if you got the money, you can buy it. You can't do that with the Frankenstrat. But you know what? If you have the knowledge and you know what to do, you can make a guitar very, very, very close to Ed's. But it does require, you know, vintage parts that are hard to find. It requires knowledge and a lot of things. So it's a really interesting. There's more and more people trying to do it, more and more people interested in it. And it's not just a Frankenstrat. It's all these different guitars. And now there's so many people that know about them now. You got the Rude, you got the Circles Unchained, which turned into the Rasta. Most people don't know that. You got all these different things, and people are like, and you know, the people who are like really crazy, like Mike and I and many others, like, I want period correct parts, you know what I mean? And like, to me, that's the one step above where you can like make it really close, you know what I mean? And you know, you could be the most talented guy to stripe everything and do this and relic it, make those stripes look identical to Ed's on the Frankenstrat, but having that extra, having the same tuners he had, the same, you having the same trim, having the same pickups, having whatever, and then making it look right. That's the closest thing, right? It's not easy to do. And then it's like, well, what neck do I have? I got the Frankenstrat back here. I got a whale tail on it. I got it's pretty close. I got a Kramer neck. Well, the Kramer neck I have is different than the one he had because his is a little different profile, this and that. So it's like, it's still not even close, even though I got a period correct Kramer pacer beak neck. So like, it's so difficult. And then it's like, what neck do you get? You know, there's 7, 8, 9, 10 different necks you could have. And then it's really interesting. And then it turns, what version of the Frankenstrat do you want? And then the 5150, as there's all these progressions. So I think it's very fun because you get to pick which version and get this. And because you just can't go buy it anywhere, right? Now they make really good stripes. They're pretty cool and everything. But you know, like if you want to get the technical relic and all that takes so much skill to get. People don't understand how difficult it is to like make something like look like it, the relic, and it takes so much time and money. People think it's cheap. If you want to do it right, it's not cheap. You know what I mean? And I think the popularity is crazy. You get all these like Facebook groups. There's more young interest, but they don't know where to go. Right? There's so much information, and no one knows where to go with it. So like that's like with Floyd Rose and I got the Van Halen gear.com. There's all these sites that I can go to and like, oh, that's what it had. But back in the day, it wasn't easy. So
yeah,
really
we didn't have that when I was a kid and tried to do my first build. None of this was available.
Yeah,
all we had were magazines.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. And
It's
the magazines were not always accurate either.
And the best part about all this, though, is it doesn't apply to just Frankenstracks or 5150s or any of Van Halen stuff. I know people who want to do Jakey Lee recreations or, Warren DeMartini recreations or, or Brad Gillis's guitar for starters.
Right.
And you've got all the stuff that's there, which is so phenomenal.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it's called period correct guitar parts, not just period correct Eddie's guitar parts.
Yeah.
It's eventually, I like to branch out in different stuff. Brad Gillis, another one. There's a lot of people that like the Brad Gillis, it's his 61 Strat or whatever,
right?
Like that, which has number 3 or 4 Floyd Rose FRT1 on it. So it's like Darren was saying, we all know what was on a 59 Les Paul. We all know what was on a 54 Strat. We never knew it was really on Eddie's guitar because, I don't even think Eddie knew a lot of the stuff where he came from. Where did that string tree, come from? The chrome string tree on the 5150. Where did that come from? I've never seen on any of his guitars. I've never seen on pretty much any other guitar. It's very Fender, Charvel, late 70s stuff, but
you've got it on your site though.
Yeah, I found 2 originals by accident. I was looking for something else, and I saw it in a bag of other string trees, and there was 2 in there, like that. So I'm like, well, there's another cool. I like buying the original stuff when I can because it's first of all it's like a hunt. It's like sometimes it's really digitally. Scavenger hunt, right? I mean, I was looking in a plastic bag, and I'm just looking at stuff because you never know what you're finding. But like Darren said, it's a full-time job looking for this stuff.
It's time consuming. I mean, you got to be
time consuming. Yeah.
I don't do as much. I used to be. You have to have the right save searches with eBay, Reverb, all these places, and you got constantly. And it's very very time consuming.
Late,
Yeah, and like. Like super crazies like me will still do it, but like, man, if you're not like don't want to waste your time, there's other avenues to do that. Get that, and now you kind of know what you just get original 84 Floyd, slap a steel sustain block, and be good enough. Go on with your life, but like but it depends on what level you want to go to. You know what I mean? And so. Yeah. It makes it so much easier now and than what it was, I'm sure, 30 years ago. I wasn't even born until 87, so that was before my time.
Yeah. Even like little things like on this guitar,
right
where the pickup selector switch is.
Right.
You have the little rhinestone, and I saw that you have that on your catalog as well.
Yeah.
And it wasn't on there very long either.
No, it wasn't on there very long, and it fell off, and it left a little white mark.
Yep.
So that's another little thing that people leave off too. It's like I like to be very detail oriented sometimes, and if I'm wrong on certain things, I love to be corrected. So
we're always learning new stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've corrected that website so many times, and we're always constantly learning new things. And there's times I was incorrect in the past, and I said, hey, I was wrong. This is the new thing, And there's always so much stuff we still don't know, and that then it kind of gets released, and then like, oh, that makes sense. So now we're always progressive in the mindset and finding new information. Not being stuck in this. It's like, well, okay, this is new stuff, so this must be it. And there's still a lot of unconnected dots, though. So we just do the best of what we can with the knowledge we got.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's have a look over, Darren, at your site, Vintage Floyd Rose.
Yeah, sure. So if you guys want to get nuts, you can. So the vintage pre 1980, that's like the stuff, like the Ed stuff. Just stick with the vintage, and then there's so much insane information on this. I don't even know where to begin, but like all the stuff we talked about, you can always go back there and look at this, and just go through every little details. I got to do some updating on it too pretty soon, but like the amount of details is, if you want to go nuts, you can, so if you want to know about the FRT one that's on the B and like the 1980-ish area, just click on the FRT one and that. FRT 4, you got a whole page with Ed with the gold FRT 4 playing that. If you want to know more about the whale tail FRT 5, that's on the 5150, click, scroll down on the 5150, got that. They got a titanium Floyd stuff. I got to update some of the newer Floyd stuff yet. I'm going to get there, but like there's just so much random. There's a lot. If you want to know more about the Japanese after the Floyd Rose contract, there's all that. It's just really nuts. So it's a lot of reading, but there's also a lot of photos. So if you want to check it out, you can. So it's for the, and you can scroll past it through, just look at the photos, see something like, and read a little bit about it. There's a lot of identification in it. Okay. So that's really crucial too. So like because a lot of times people post something on eBay, they said this it's not really, it's like a double eagle clone. So like, if you want to ID stuff, you're not sure, click on the FRT 1 and 3 page, because those are kind of most confusing. And so there's a lot of ID stuff. So it's great. I spent an insane amount of time trying to ID stuff, because there's all this Japanese stuff, especially like in the pre-Kramer time. So it's a fun time, and it's a good read if you're if you're bored and have nothing to do, and you want to learn a little bit more about the Floyd Rose history, which is some of the most interesting history you'd ever think. It's there. So it's crazy. So it's sometimes I got to read it myself, because sometimes I forget about the stuff I write, and so I got to go back and refresh my memory before I even do stuff. So yeah.
Take an annual refresher course.
Yeah, it's a lot of information. So yeah, check it out. It's also VanHalenGear.com. That's another one where I'm working with a few people, and we're trying to update that. But there's a lot of great pictures on vintage Floyd Rose with historical stuff and photos from the Kramer. Like right now, that's a picture of the Kramer factory. Ed putting on the first, I think it's FRT 5. That's Andy Apiccio. He's actually the Floyd Rose marketing head of it right now. I think that's Dennis Berardi. So all these great. I actually talked to Andy a long time ago, and I guess there's a bunch of other photos and videos of Ed in the factory, and I've been bugging him to release that stuff. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, like there's Floyd Rose that below at the Fernandez booth. Like now, this guy named John, his name is John, and he's from Europe. He's finding this. That's a gem right there. So that's Floyd Rose. That's the Atlanta show. Okay, that's Atlanta, Georgia, 1982. That's Floyd Rose at the Fernandez booth. Like he's finding this gold. This guy has like so many Japanese catalogs, and he sends me them. He's like a godsend of like find this old vintage information. So like at that show, Floyd Rose probably went to the Kramer booth and say, "Hey, I got this FRT 4. Let's check it out." But like this is stuff that's been hidden from history. We probably would never know if it wasn't for this guy named John from Europe. So he's been helping me. He's been helping me out with a lot of these old vintage Japanese photos a lot. So it's great stuff. And you can translate all this stuff. If you get like Google Translate on your phone, you can upload and like totally converts it from Japanese to English or whatever language. So it's really cool. And
it's a perfect time to finally be able to get these Japanese in magazines, because now you can easily translate them and see what they were saying and get a little more information out of them besides dates and stuff. But
I've still got to get my translate for the 2 Japanese books that I got.
Yeah,
Everybody Wants Eddie and the Van Halen 2 one, with the B on the front.
Yeah,
those things are just like
that one's a book.
Thick.
That one's like this thick. That's a cool one,
that's got great photo. I got that one. It's got great photos.
Yeah, look at that thing.
Yeah, that's a good one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the other one, Everybody Wants Eddie. But yeah, I got to get the Google Translate just for these things, because pictures has it all, but it doesn't give enough description, and that's what I love about the Japanese journalists, because they were to the nth degree about every little piece of minutia.
Right.
Yeah.
There's one thing too that the 84 neck plate too. In one of the magazines, it says the serial number is B4125, right? Yeah, the 5150 is 129. The 1984 is 125.
Right.
A friend on one of the sites, pointed that out, a Japanese Mitsuya, and so he showed us in the magazine where this was at, and it's like, well, so they've been pretty right about a lot of things, and they had a lot of access to those guitars, and there, a lot of information, correct information, comes from those magazines and everything. So it's like, well, the other number was 4186. It's like that's been around for a long time too. So it's one of those, we don't really know until there's a close-up shot of the neck plate. I don't really know what the number is either, but luckily with a lot of this stuff, we do see a lot of really good photos and a lot of good information with those. And now, especially with Google Translate, we can translate anything we want.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Mitsuya Sagawa, he's a godsend.
He's working on one project a week, it seems like, and he goes in depth so much, and he's a good guy.
Yeah, the people from Japan, they appreciate the art behind the art. They really, with the guitars, this is like kind of the stuff we're talking about. They're like, well, that's the song. What was behind the music that Ed played? And like, they're also like the way we think too, where with the crazy details. And they took the best photos of everything back in those days, with Ed's gear sometimes, and so a lot of those guys actually, they're really good at investigating too.
The pictures here are, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just the detail. I mean, here.
I know. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Nobody had these pictures until this book came out, really.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is what Frankie had 3 pickups. The B with the FRT1. Things like that. Just insane.
When I was first looking on the internet for stuff, that they had those pictures, some of those pictures, but they were about this big on the screen,
right,
and they were blurry, and you really couldn't use them.
Yeah.
There's about 4 or 5 books out of Japan, either young guitar magazines that everybody should get. I mean, pictures like that look at the Shark and Frankie next to each other.
Yeah, and then you've got the white Les Paul that they took on tour also.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of great stuff. I think someone had a question about, was it something FRT1 new news? Someone asked me, I don't know if it was sometime back, Floyd Rose, they were supposed to actually release a reissue of the FRT1 before COVID happened, and something happened with the factories. They actually had it at a prototype at a NAMM one time. I forgot what, 2019 maybe, and it never came to be. I'm not really sure why, but they were planning on releasing an FRT1 reissue, but I'm still not here.
It probably would have been along the lines of the B master built. They had the relic ones on that.
Right. Well, they only made 300 of those relic ones for the B back in 19, right?
Yeah. Was it 300? I think it was a 300. There might be less. I think there was 40.
50? 40?
Yeah, it was pretty low.
I don't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 78 of the 78s, maybe 79Bs, something like that.
Yeah. And question for that, for the 78s. We know that it was a Fender plate, but it had the Mighty Mite parts on it, correct?
That's the debate too. As far as I know, he originally had the 61 Strat bridge on it, and then at some point he switched it out to a 70s base plate with.
Okay.
It had the cast. It was kind of like the FRT4, where it had the cast plate and the block together. Mm-hmm. And then he had, I think, the original Strat saddles on there. And then I've seen some where it has the 70s. It's a mix. It has the 70s saddles with the 60s saddles. So it has the bent saddles with the cast saddles on it.
Are you talking about the B or the Frankenstrat?
78.
The Strat.
The Strat?
Yeah, 78. 78 Frankie.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
And then, so the cover shoot of Van Halen 1, right? Where it looks like he has a brass trim on it. It looks like the Mighty Might. There's another photo now, I think, in one of the newer Those Hour books that shows that pretty clearly, but it shows a brass one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it shows a chrome one. So I don't know if he had a brass one on there, because there was a lot of brass trims, and I'm talking about the Charvel, Mighty Might, the ones that I have on the site. I can't remember.
Yeah, there's a lot of switch up. He would like to change the saddles on the high E and B strings sometimes.
You've seen his high E saddle on the Frankenstrat sometimes. It's curved, it's angled about this much. It's really weird.
Keith, there's a time I knew the exact answer to this. I with that, if I seen an era, I forgot. There's a lot going on at that bridge at that one time, but there's a lot going on with the Frankie and in '79. A lot of crazy stuff happened, but he had
Hey,
well,
Ron,
I mean,
have a good night.
He had that Mighty Might trim in the photo in the album. He had that.
Yeah.
Mighty Might, but then then afterwards, he had the, later on he had 79 in '79 he had that '70s cast one with a few of the original regular '60s saddles with then a few different ones in the high B, high E string, and then he was swapped that. I think that's what happened later on, but that was kind of all over the place. Mm-hmm.
And that's what they ended up reissuing out this past year with the new 78 Stripe series.
That one they have just the regular Strats 60s style saddles.
Okay.
With a brass block, but I've never seen him with a brass block on that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. 60s Strat trims, 50s, 60s Strat trims always came with a steel block, so I don't know if they knew some information about why it switched to brass. I mean, it's Fender. Fender was putting it out. They should. I don't really know. But yeah, so as far as the bridges on that, and then the brass Mighty Might, it's either a brass one or a chrome one, and it could have been both, or
if you go to the Frankenstrat page on VanHalenGear.com, you can check that out. That's all on there too. I didn't refresh my memory on that one, but there was a time I remembered this.
I remembered it last week. You should ask me last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the same thing with the B. The B originally had a 70s. That it seems like it was always switching parts. That the one on the 70 on the. I'm getting confused now with my years and dates now. But the B could have had the bridge that was on Frankie later on, which could have been the cast 70s style Fender plates.
Wow.
The B page on VanHalenGear.com, it's on there too. I didn't refresh it. That's another website of mine that I work on with a few others help me, and it's on there. I didn't refresh my memory, but my brain's check it out. Too. But the B is, I know, but that's the thing. There's so many different changes that happen over the course of everything. It's the pickups, it's the tuners, it's literally every single hardware part, and it's like it's. To keep track of all that, and that's what you got to do. You have photos. This is the change of this year. This is always. It's so easy to get confused. You know what I mean? So everything, even the necks. Most people think there's only one neck on the Frankenstrat. They thought there's only one. There's there's a lot.
I think there was 13 or 11. I think
there's more than 7. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think it was.
Wow, really?
I think there's 10.
Donnie would know all that stuff, and that's. I like
10 or 11.
I like when we have people that are. Sorry if I was yelling. It's hard to hear. I like when we have people that are dedicated to kind of one or two different things, right? You got, Darren with the Floyds and the Van Halen guitar line. Me with a bunch of different parts, and you have guys that'll specialize in certain things or certain knowledge. One guy deals with the music. They know all of when. Seems like Keith knows a little bit of everything too, but. I like the guys that specialize in certain things, and that's really cool. As long as we can all communicate with each other. I communicate with Darren all the time about what I found on this guitar might, be the same thing on this guitar, or he deals with Donnie, and so it's all big community, which is great because sometimes you like to keep certain things to yourself to put on your build or something maybe like that, but. As long as we're all communicate with each other and say, hey, this is cool on that guitar, that might be in this one, and then like I said, we all know what's on a 59 Les Paul, but we don't know. There's no specs to any of Eddie's guitars really, and he might.
There's no one spec at all.
He might have had something on there for one day. Like a lot of people that don't know on the Bumblebee, and the Hydra, he had a little pin on there to hold to stop the tremolo arm, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
All that's left of it is a little hole that you might think was a ding, in the paint. So it's like a lot of people don't know a lot of stuff. So it's really cool.
And even the name of the, it's not even, it's a misnomer. Calling it a Hydra.
Hydra
because
and the right.
The Mighty Mite Megazone is the actual name on the catalog.
Right.
But
I've just known it as a Hydra.
That was a wonderful thing about Eddie, though. Holly Lewis posted it perfectly on her poster. He was a virtual tinkerman. He was always.
I've never seen that poster.
Always.
That's cool.
Yeah. If you go to Holly Lewis's site, she'll put one up. It's got a great poem on it too.
Oh, okay, cool.
But he was constantly changing everything. He was just like that tone chaser.
I know.
He was always seeing, okay, what does this do? What does that do?
And that came into play through the years too, I think, is why there's so many of everything. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's more photos. There's still photos, like new photos surfacing, and it's like, wait, what? What's that? We never seen that before. And that's another thing that adds on to it. I remember this. Yeah. Just recently within like the last year, I think, not even, my friend Dimitri. No, this is a guy who's all into Van Halen stuff. He's like crazy like us. And then he was like going through his photos. He's like, oh, here's it's a no logo. It's one of the prototype FRT 5s with no logo on it on the Frankenstrat. He had it the whole time and he even missed it. And that was recent. It's like, what the heck? There's a prototype. Like this was like a year and a half ago. It's like brand new. Like there's all the stuff that's still being discovered as pictures are coming released. And like a lot of the stuff we don't know. Like what happened to the FRT 1 on the B? We don't know. What happened to the gold FRT 4 on the Frankenstrat? Hopefully it's somewhere in his stash of parts, whatever. But we don't know where any of that stuff is. It's just so interesting, and like as you can only get as photo surface or things come up, it's so interesting to kind of go by it. And like with Ed, it's difficult, right? Because he tinkered around so much.
Mm-hmm.
No, and just like you were talking about earlier, that little string tree on the 5150 headstock, David Allen Wright, he was making those, he made small batches.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that you got to make because you're not going to find them.
You can go on the rabbit hole just on the string trees. Like that's another rabbit hole on string trees. And locking nuts, another one. Oh my! If you go into locking nuts. We don't even bother, like that's just, we'll bore everyone to death if we talk about locking nuts and different, there's a lot of crazy differences of what, and like some of them we're not sure because like it's hard to get good photos. It's not like we can take the locking nut off Ed's B and dissect it and look around it. We don't have to, we can't do that. We don't got photos of it. We just got photo of the front. Same with and
we're not going to get any new pictures of the B. So it's like
the FRT 1.
Right.
Yeah. We just got a photo of Ed's FRT 1 in the front. Like we don't got all around deep close shots of it from the back, and it's not, we don't got super detailed ones. It's 1979, like the Japanese have the best photos. Actually in that book have the best photos of it, and that's all we got. Right. There's only one photo I seen because I was like, what sustain block was on that? I'm really curious, but like there's only one photo of all the B that I've seen where you can kind of get a glimpse on it. You can barely see it. That's the only one. So like it's crazy. It's 1979, right? It's just different.
Yeah, right. Guys, I'll be right back. I'm gonna get some more coffee.
Yeah.
Ice pack. I'll be right back.
But that is what this show is for. For us to open all that up and to go rabbit holing. To dig through all this mess.
Yeah,
some of the comments. We'll be here forever. We talk about locking nuts. It's like
the locking nuts, because the Japanese had the 4508s, and then there was also like the US or FRT ones had kind of their own USA one, and there's a few different, and then like it's just crazy, and like the FRT 4 ones, we don't got we can't take them off. There's just so few examples of the FRT4, the prototype ones. I have actually, like, KK Downing, he sold his. He has one of the version 2 prototypes. He sold his hammer guitar, and it was on the hammer. I'm like, who bought that? Can you guys connect me of who bought that so I can take a picture of the locking nut? I'm like going, and everyone's like, what does this guy care? Like, but I'm like, we don't got any photos of one, and so it's difficult. So, like, as we slowly go across, we kind of get more information based upon it. But then, like, the string retainers are another one, and then, like, I mean, now that we acquired these, we know more. Like, we acquired these FRT4s, and like Mike really dissects. He's really good on, like, the measurements on, like, the bolts and everything. But, like, it takes time. It's really interesting.
There's no catalog with all this stuff in there, right? I mean, there's no catalog from 1978, 79 that has all the features. There's no press release. Hey, we're coming out with a new string tree design, or we're coming out. So it's all just. A lot of it was handmade. A lot of it was just, get it out there. And so the only way we can, actually, get this stuff on paper or anything like that is to actually find the parts and get them and kind of piece together what, well, this is from this year, but, this one was brand new on an 83, but it looks like it was from the, 79 or 80, but some of its stuff was being reused at the time. An example of that was... the whale tails on the Kramers in 83, whatever, from, this B series. A lot of it was leftover stuff from Fernandez, because at that time they were switching around, and there's a lot of 4208 locking nuts on those. A lot of them have the round string retainers on those. So a lot of parts were being, used up at the time. So it's like, is this correct for this year? But this is also correct for this year.
Yeah.
It's correct for
because
this
there's
model,
a trend. Yeah. It's really weird because the transition, like on the whale tails, right? On the one on the 5150, there's instances where I've seen Kramer Pacers with like a USA locking nut similar to like an FRT one. Then there's a 45. There's been Kramer Pacers with the whale tail with the 4508s, which were the Japanese, which came on like the FRT 3s and Japanese FRT 1s. And then like
there's milled ones, right? Yeah.
And then there's like Japanese string retainers on them. They're like weird, the crazy weird ones. There's a few of these crazy weird string retainers that are only Japanese. I'm like, what the hell? Like, why is that on? Like,
and sometimes noticing the tooling marks on it will let you know what factory it came from or whatever. A lot of the saddles look alike, but there's certain machining marks on them that are indicative of this type of model or from this thing. So a lot of it is hunting it down. I mean, Darren spent a lot of time on his website hunting things down, and now we're trying to pinpoint a lot of things that still don't know, and a lot of it is detective work and say, you got this, I got this, let's put them together and see what kind of is in between them and where a lot of stuff we still don't know who made them.
It's tough connecting the dots because the pre-Kramer stuff, it's obviously these Japanese factories, and a lot of those guys possibly passed away, or they don't know English, or how do we connect these people? They're just some guys at some factories that Fernandez contracted, probably at Takeuchi or Goto and a few other places, or this place in Kyoto, Japan. And like, how do you get a hold of it? Like, these are the people who would really know the answers, right? But how do you get a hold of them? Where are they at? We don't know. It's hard. I mean, I can't even play people in the States. It's hard to get in contact with these times. We haven't had much luck getting a hold of Floyd Rose, some things. But I remember it's tough to remember. It happens so fast for them. They're thinking about producing something that works, making money and getting through. Like, it's tough things to remember. I wish I really want some more photos of, this thing called the patent prototype. It was kind of the prototype that FRT won. It's in the patent. Like, there's no photos of that. There's no good photos of the first brass prototype on the website. A few, but there's not a whole lot. It's just tough connecting the dots, because there's no firsthand primary accounts to talk to. You know what I mean? The best stuff we got is like catalogs and all these like old Japanese magazines and like other stuff that we acquire. And okay, that's what this is. It's not easy,
Yeah. Does Floyd Rose have like a? Does Floyd have a like a Da Vinci Codex with all the drawings and the schematics and
he might
the breakdowns?
He might. I know
We haven't had luck contacting. How should I say this? I haven't had a whole lot of luck. I talked to Andy Papiccio, and he's kind of like Floyd Rose right now, and he was there with Kramer, kind of. You know, the Fernandez stuff was before his time, right? You know what I mean? And I think that stuff is, you know, that stuff, and it's, you know, Floyd's there, and I'm sure Floyd has some things, but how should I say this? I don't think they mainly like that history of the Fernandez stuff. Possibly, I in my gut feeling, I feel like it's a history that's kind of like because they want to shove under the rug. Possibly, I don't know, but I haven't had any luck getting acquiring with like Floyd Rose or anyone. He's never contacted me or Mike or anyone. I really wish. I'd like to ask him some questions on it, but you know, I don't know. It's just, you know, with Floyd Rose, you know, the guy went through so much with lawsuits and this and that. You know, it's really, he had a kind of a chaotic life with pet. You know, there's just so much. And maybe he's just like, you know what, I don't want to relive that. There's so much that happened.
Think about,
he doesn't even maybe want to think about it, of like all this stuff that happened. I mean, and who knows, right? So like, it's really
nice to know why they went with certain things, or, you know, I'm sure the answer is like, well, we were just trying things out, or, you know, we were just, you know, see how would this play out. And, you know, a lot of things like why they would go to certain lengths to tool up for certain things, if just within a couple of weeks or months that they would, you know, go off and something like that. You know, a lot of that is just, I think, the hurriness of it. Try to get things out. Try to, you know, strike while the iron's hot, sort of thing. And, you know, things just get, you know, try everything,
and like,
you know.
And like Floyd might even really was sure what was going on in Japan either. Like, what the hell's he might have been like, I told them to make it and they made it. And then like, I mean, there was so much happening and it was going on so fast and so many things. They're releasing models, boom, 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 the FRT4. And then like, okay, Ed doesn't like it. Switch, got FRT5. Then they retool everything for the FRT5. You know, and like there's so much happening, and for us, like the FR, like the production FRT4, where is it? Like, so this is the FRT4, super rare, right? It's, you can only find in Japan. They make a whole lot, and like this was just 4 months. They made these for 4 months in the history. You can't even find it. You can't even find it in the States. The very first ever production guitars with a Floyd Rose fine tuners was actually a Fernandez guitar, not the Kramer Pacers. Believe it or not, it was these, and that's where you could find these. There's like late '82. And like, they're like, okay, when this is close to being released, he signed a contract with Kramer, and Fernandez is probably like, what's going on? Wait, what? He's with Kramer? Like, there's all this crazy stuff going on. I did talk to someone who was a salesman of Fernandez, and it was translating. It was tough, but he said, I guess the Kramer thing, because Floyd was with Fernandez, and he signed the Kramer, that seemed to be a surprise with Fernandez. They did not expect that. Is from what I gather, is what I hear. So they were kind of like, wait, what's going on? And they must have contracted out to 85. And so that's why they could still make the official Floyds. And then it was over. So I think, you know, there's just so much going on, and some of the stuff will be lost forever into the sounds of time, as I call it, because it's just some things we're just not going to know. We're only 40 years into it, and look at how much stuff is lost in the history, right? So,
but still, though, on the plus side of that, though, you guys have done the research. You guys have paved the way. You have these parts available. You hunted them down all over the globe. So, yeah.
To me, it's an important part of history. Not just Ed's stuff, but music history, like Tremel's. You know what bothers me is, I like the stuff from the 80s a lot. To me, that was very innovative time, the guitar, and Ed was at the pinpoint. You know, like what I call origin gear, like Fenders and Gibsons, that was really heavily researched. They got 20 books on Fender. Like, all this stuff has been heavily researched.
But like when it got more to learn about that stuff.
Yeah, but when it got to the 70s and 80s, nothing was well documented. Nothing. They kind of just didn't care. So like a lot of that stuff, it's not just like Floyd stuff. Even if you go with Jackson, Charvel, Boogie Bites, a lot of the 80s brand names, a lot of it's still not super well documented. Some of it is, but it's not crazy amount. And like, even like this Floyd Rose history, like one of the most important tremolos in the history of guitar, still going on today, arguably, that and the Fender Trem, and no one knows really what the true history of it is. It's just kind of mind blowing to me. Yeah. You know what I mean?
This whole thing reminds me of Tesla versus Edison.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. It's who gets who's got the knowledge of it. I mean, it could be lost, as I call it, lost to the sounds of time. Like it's we're not even thinking like 200 years in the future. This is just from like the 80s, right? And we still can't find the stuff. Once Floyd Rose, everyone dies, and it's just looking at catalogs and trying to connect the dots like Mike and I are trying to do, and like all these other Van Halen guys. And it's not easy to do.
Waiting on the next picture to surface.
That's exactly it. Hopefully we can, and I hope Wolfie like goes into like the vault of like spare parts and just takes the camera with him and just there it is.
Here, guys.
Here it's like there's
here's the gold Trem.
Wouldn't it be great if that was, at some point turned into a museum or walked around? I mean, like, Leo Fender's office at G&L or something like that, where you can walk. Everything is exactly how he left it and everything. I mean, I know it's, Wolfie's to do whatever he wants, but, there needs to be something done like that, man. I mean, I don't know. I don't get a lot of interest, per se, from the family, from Van Halen family doing all any of that, but it could be something happening. They need to do traveling guitars, on display and everything. That would be so cool. The Frankenstrat at the Met, I missed that by a couple months, and that would be so cool to see all that stuff in person in life. And
it's all about preserving the history and documenting it, because guys like Keith and Tony, like you guys lived through it and you've seen that, like. Keith is the OG back in the 80s, looking at the magazines.
Right. What was your first show, Keith? What was your first Van Halen show?
Madison Square Garden, July 17th of 81.
81. Tony, when was yours?
Mine, June 2nd, 1979, Raleigh.
Oh my God. Mine was 2004.
Yeah, I never got to see Van Halen, actually.
Me neither. I've seen Van Halen 4 times. I've still never seen Van Halen.
I went to Vegas last year with Mike to go see David Lee Roth. I was so pumped, and then it was canceled. So we went guitar shopping.
To go to that show too.
Yeah.
the original final show.
The first final show, and then they added a couple more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. It's it's nice seeing. There's a lot. It seems like there's more young kids too going into it. And they all got questions. When I was 14, 15, I was like, where do you find all these answers? There wasn't a good source, and now there is. You got this Floyd Rose site. There's other Van Halen stuff to look at, and that's what's nice nowadays.
Young kids got it made if they love to play guitar and they take a liking to Van Halen. They got it made compared to us. We had to live it,
really fight,
or research it.
Yeah,
right.
It's like if Keith
tapes back.
It's like if Keith, he wanted that gold Floyd back in 1982, 83, and he's seen in the magazine. He's like, I want that Floyd. And he's searching everywhere. He's not finding it. He'd be searching for 20 years, still can't find it.
Oh, and I was. And then later on, I found out there were only a couple of them made. I'm like, oh, jeez.
Yeah, and now they got that resource, but it's good to see, eventually young kids do it. And obviously they start out with a zero knowledge base, but now it's easier to work up to that because the knowledge is out there. You just got to read and look at photos, and, it's a lot easier now. And instead, guys like us are doing the work, so you don't have to waste time doing it. It's right there for you.
Right.
That's what's so important. That's the important thing, that you guys have set the groundwork for this because it's so vital. And
because there are a lot of young players that are keeping the torch lit of the music that we dig. So
it's the 80. Yeah, exactly. I like the young kids and the teen. There seem to be a little resurgence in the guitar, and they like the 80s bands actually.
Yeah.
There's a lot
because
of kids.
It's fun, right? It's fun to play that. It's not fun to play certain guitar. It's fun to listen to. It's great to listen to. But it's not fun. It's not like Eddie's smile looked like he was having fun because he was playing stuff that was fun to play.
Yeah, it's the kids now. I'm really impressed. They really like the '80s stuff, not just '80s rock. They like just everything. It's really interesting. So I'm really glad about that. I was kind of worried about the electric guitar, like what's going to happen, but it seems to be a little resurgent. There's like the YouTube guitars. There's a little resurgence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, which is good. You know, I'm all for it. And there's there's a lot of young kids interested in Van Halen stuff too, and it's awesome because
a lot of it's because their parents were too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we're getting the second generation,
and it's to keep it going. And so I think it's just great. And so like when it comes to like the guitars and everything, you see these kids want to do their own builds and all that stuff, and they find out it's not so easy, and then they try a second time and they get into it, you know. And now it's really cool. And now, and of course, you don't have to be nuts. You can just go to EVH Guitars and buy, or Wolfgang, and go on with it. But now it's like finding the gear, they kind of little better kind of knowing what the gear is. And
maybe so it's because they haven't seen a guitar in a long time. They're kind of like, what is that?
And now if you want to learn guitar now, it's a lot easier. You can learn on YouTube. There's those guitars you can buy now with LED lights to show you exactly what fret and string to go on and plays a song for you. Like back in the 80s, I mean, you had to learn by ear. It was difficult, and nowadays, if you want to learn,
hit and miss. You were on your own. I had a cool, very good teacher. Thank you, Eddie. But I know a lot of people, their young experience with lessons and stuff is not good experience. So.
Yeah.
Hell, you have a Peterson strobe tuner where all you have to do is push a button, and then you can tune it to whatever song you want now, to whatever tuning completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However,
just take you out
of tune you want to be. Yeah. However out of tune you want to be, it'll let you.
Yeah. It's insane.
There's more to.
Different.
Yeah, there's a lot of distractions now with young kids, with all the technology. But if you focus and want to learn, you can learn faster, I think. And it's so much better. Like some of these things I see, I'm like, oh man, I wish I had that. And I didn't start learning guitar until the mid 2000, early 2000s. And I'm like, wow, some of the stuff they got now is just unreal. So it's just really cool. So I'm excited to see the future, and there's a lot of young kids that have questions, and they're seeing the site and this Van Halen stuff, and it's just an interesting time to be in, right now. And like I said, the first generation, like Tony, Keith, and like you guys grew up with that stuff, and in 50 years, well, Tony, you might be living to your 100 some, but it's you don't know when that time's up. And then it's like, how do you talk to these OG guys, like like Jerry and like all the old school builders, and like those guys aren't. The time's gonna pass, and it's like hearing stories of how they had to build their own whatever back then. It's like, man, you guys had a lot more patience than I did. I tried striping mine, and about 30 minutes later, I'm like, nope, I'm not doing this. I'm not a relicer.
Yeah,
it's like, so it's interesting, and now you got all these resources to do it for, and I still hate it. And like I give it to someone else. It's like I can't do that.
It's a whole other thing.
Yeah, and if you want to do, find a period correct relicing, go to Johnny B Guitars. John Burgess, he knows his shit, and he is another mad scientist when it comes to this shit.
That's the thing too. Is like
he knows his research.
I mean, the research wasn't really put in until recently, really. I mean, a lot of guys did this, but putting it out there now, and I mean, I kind of got reintroduced to Van Halen and stuff. Like again, I was interested, a long time ago, but the Met pictures got me really interested in again, because it's like, oh, now I have these pictures to go off of. Are you kidding me? Now it sparked my interest, and then all the Facebook groups is really cool, and seeing guys like like him, Burgess, go into all the detail and the depths about painting and how he painted it and what day he painted it, and and all this other stuff is really, really cool. And
kind of tapes, all of it.
I don't know. It's like I had the Glenn LaFerman Frankenstrap picture up right on my wall. I had it, it's like, well, I never noticed little things on there. I never noticed the scratches on there, and until the Met pictures came out, and now Johnny's telling you, it was 80 grit or 100 grit sandpaper. It's like, okay, cool, thanks. Just the amount of detail, that you know about it, but now the hard part is replicating that, right?
Right.
And there's still a couple things, well, did Eddie paint white before he sprayed red again? I think he did. It's like, well, that's why there's white underneath the red there when it should be black. It's like, oh man, it's so cool. So little things like that.
Yeah,
it's just
when you're starting out, you don't.
Again.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's not easy. Like a lot of people, when they start doing it, like people going crazy with that. They're like, "Well, I just paid $150 for the body and neck." Well, for they don't take inflation account. Two, they forget that he sacrificed a 1961 Strat for parts to get the early Alfrega Strat. So like, there's more to the details, and then to do it right, it's like.
In the long run, that guitar cost him a bunch of money in the long run. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, if you're going to do it, it's a lot of work and a lot of money. If you want to do it, the paint. If you're just putzing around, don't care. But if you want to make it look correctly, you're going to drive yourself crazy. It takes so much practice and years, and like,
it looks differently on a different day, right? It's kind of like recording. It's like this sounds great today. Tomorrow's not going to sound good, or this looks great today, but for whatever reason, this is going to look a little droopy, or this is going to look a little off, or that line's not going to cross right. So it's a never-ending process with certain things, and there comes a point where you just need to say, okay, that's good enough. But other times it's like, well, I'll do better on the next one. That's it's the exciting part, right?
And that's why this part is
or I'll
so
have somebody
critical
else do
with
it
you
better.
guys. What you guys are doing is so critical, though, because everybody always fusses on the paint, like you said earlier. But if you don't have the right parts to go with it, it's
Right.
That's my biggest.
Just me. I'm a purist.
Yeah. Me too. You see a lot of people spend an insane amount of hours. They have someone help them they do everything, and it's like the paint, it's so good, and then but they'll put some like cheap, Asian clone Floyd on it that has nothing to do with it, or like they put the cheapest parts on it. It's like, at least throw an original Floyd on it or something. Like at least
do build it up. It's like it's to find all these parts or do everything all at one time is gonna be tough. So it's like if you find I'll do the nut this time, or a couple months I'll get this. That's the thing too, is you can always still build it up.
Yeah,
and get the right parts or the right paint. But
my Frankenstrat is like, to me, it's one of the top 5 paint jobs, or like the best I've ever one of the top 5. And I'm slowly building up the parts to like make it. I got the whale tails, and I'm working on the bridge pickup, and I try to get, I got the Kramer neck on, and I got the right tuners, but it's like, it takes time to slowly get there. Now, if you want to get crazy, you get Strat pickup. It depends. Just do the black and white version. It's a little easier with not always, sometimes, but it depends on what year you do. But if you want to get really period correct, sometimes it's impossible, because you're not going to find a Floyd FRT4 prototype Floyd. Don't bother. But you can find a whale tail sometimes.
Like the neck you're talking about, the same spec neck. You're not going to find a bird's eye maple Kramer beat neck with the right amount of, the width of the same neck and the skunk stripe.
Yeah.
It's all
and the proper figuring on the maple.
Right.
Yeah. Well, even if
how many bird's eye maple beak necks have you seen Kramers?
And I actually got a real Kramer beak neck on mine right now, but it's an R2 nut, and Ed's was an R5, and the profile is more like a thinner Chevelle style, so like the profile doesn't even match. So like his, so like, even though I got it period correct, it still wasn't really like what Ed's profile was, most likely, because what I mean. So what are you gonna do? You can only go so far. That's why you could get a Tom Anderson neck, but even then, that's a whole. You could get different kind. You could get a Boogie Bias neck and that, but even then, you don't know if it's exactly the shirt. Like the Tom Anderson neck he had on the Frankenstrat for a little bit. You can find those, but usually they're briefly made, and they usually were reverse headstock aftermarket. I haven't seen many regular. And so, like, that's one you could have that could be pretty close, but you still have to paint it, but they're hard to find. You get a Boogie Body's neck, but you got to make sure you get the right. He had a lot of different Boogie Body's necks on it. He had the 61 Strat neck on it very briefly. Well, you can go buy a 61 Strat neck and put it on there. If you want to pay that money, be my guest.
Or you could just go to Donnie Ward.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
Donnie Ward have one built.
Just go to and he is so good at like And I got some like real stuff I sent him. So he nails it, and actually this Ebony-neck, like he just nails it. Like just do that. It's because that's exactly what it is. It's going to feel right. It's perfect because if you spend time looking for all this stuff, it'll drive you crazy, there's so many guys like down here, they're so good at making these necks and that's his passion. You know what I mean? Like he is like, like the detail oriented, and he's a CNC man. And it's like,
he just got a brand new Haas CNC machine too. Right. And he's in love with that. Oh yeah.
Yeah. He knows what details to look at with the necks, and like, that's like, so you can get, boom, this is what I actually like the Ebony neck that Ed had, like the profile could be close. We don't know, but like he has it, and like, it's pretty close to what it might be if you want that neck. And it's just crazy what you can do right now. So it's cool. Yeah. So one other thing. So like I get questioned a lot. What's it like playing like an FRT1 or like a non-fining Floyd Rose? So like I'm a historian. I like being in the moment. So it's kind of a pain in the ass with the FRT1s because when a double locking Floyd, right? So the problem with, right. So when you lock a fine tuner and it goes a little out of tune, because when you clamp it might go out. Well, you got the fine tuners to fix it, right? Well, on the FRT1 or FRT, whatever, any kind of non-locking, you lock it and it'll go out of tune and you can't fix with the fine tuners, right? So it's tough because when you clamp it, you kind of got to go a little slower when you're clamping it. And it's a little trick to it, but it's kind of annoying because when you clamp it, it might go a little out of tune. So you got to know how to maybe slightly detune or overtune. So when you clamp it, you know where it's going to be. So it's kind of a pain. Is it better? A lot of people say no, but Brad Gillis still uses these because one thing, sometimes with fine tuners, and Randy Hansen told me this, he's like, well, if you got fine tuners, sometimes depending on your playing style, you can possibly knock it out of tune depending on your weird playing style. Well, obviously you got a non-fine tuner. You don't have that. Now I still want, so if you're going to get an FRT1, like if you want to do a B clone and you want an FRT1, you locking it, that's for like a Floyd Rose expert, because if you don't know how to work a Floyd Rose properly, it'll kind of drive you crazy. But once they're locked in place, they like never go out of tune. They're really cool. But so a lot of people tell me, well, what Floyd Rose should I get for whatever? Now, even though the FRT1's kind of annoying to play in the FRT3s, I like having a B clone with an FRT1 on it. And because I want like 79 version of the B, because you know what, even though it's not perfect, it actually is really good and sounds good. Once it's locked in place, it's good, but it's kind of annoying, right? And Ed had a guitar tech to help him out, but like it brings me back to 1979. And it's like, you know what? This is what it brings me back to the moment. Like this is all he had. This is all had, like, this is the best. And it brings me back to like what it might've been like at that time in 79 and 80. So I always like having different versions of it. So like, cause it's unique. It's a little annoying, but it's kind of interesting because it brings you back to a certain time of history of like, this is what Ed had. That's all he had was an FRT. When he played it for 2-3 years, that's all he had until the FRT4. He made it work. And so to me, that's so cool to have the guitar with like one of these on it, because it just brings you back. It's like a historical, you bring back. I know some people, they'd burn every single one of these if they could, because they just want to.
A lot of repair guys says, you're looking for those? Yeah, I throw those away.
Yeah. I'll take it. Here, bring them to me. I'll take one.
For those of you, what I tell people, look, if you get a B, just put FRT1 on it. And guess what? If you probably got more than one guitar, right? So then just get something else and put a fine tuning Floyd on it, right? Boom, done. And then whenever you get annoyed with something, just play the one of the FRT1 and you're good to go. But no, I mean, that's only with it's double locking if you got the locking nut. Actually, the FRT1s and 3s, these work. They sound incredible and they're super reliable. And if you just have a guitar just without a locking nut, and you have like maybe like locking tuners on it, these are great. Like who's that guitarist? Govan or something. He's Charvel.
Yeah.
He actually brought it back. He plays the German version of these.
Yeah.
You know, because Kramer put these. Okay, here's the German version of it. These you see these on Kramer Focus guitars. You know, this is that version, and you know these are made on Focus. People didn't care about these back in Kramer because everyone wanted the FRT5s, right? With the fine tuners. But these are coming back. Charvel's putting them on guitars because now you can just use them with locking tuners, and they're awesome because they still lock and they're super reliable and they sound good. So what I say, you know, like the FRT ones, these are actually incredible trems. And if you really can't stand the locking nut, just don't use it. Just use the tuners, and it's fine, you know. But go back to what Ed had. Frankenstrat too. He had it on the Frankenstrat. He had it on the Root. He had on a lot of. He had it on 6 guitars, I think. The Unchained. So put it on there. You're gonna appreciate it. It'll bring you back to a certain time when Eddie, that's all he had. And was it, you know, what he would normally use until 84? No, but it's to me, I like experience, even if the guitar isn't the best, either way, I still like the experience of it. Just like, why would people it's like buying a 54 Strat, you know, and like, you know, think about it, people buy a 54 Strat, you know, it's like brings to the time. Is it the ultra best? I mean, that's arguable, but like, you're not going to buy a 54 Strat and just change the tuners to lock-in tuners just because you're going to keep it original. Right.
Right.
So and they do that because that's the way it is. So what I say, do what Ed did, you know, if you're doing a B clone, don't put an FRT5 on it, put an FRT1 on it, go back in time. Go back in time and experience what the tech had to go through for Eddie. You'll appreciate the old Brad Gillis's guy. Brad Gillis still uses the FRT ones. You're gonna feel for that guitar tech.
But by now he's already got it figured out.
This has been a public service announcement.
Yeah. No, they're honestly really good. I had a Fernandez BG model. It's got an FRT3 on it. No, they're really good. Once you get them locked in place, they're good. It's just that when you lock the clamps, you can't just, you know, if you got an old Kramer, you got FRT5, you could really just yank on it, go quick. And because the thing is now another thing is the original. So granted, Ed's and Brad Gillis's, the locking nuts and these had little tighter tolerances, you know, because they had to be. And so when you screwed and clamped them, they didn't go out of tune as bad. Whereas FRT5s didn't have to worry about that as much because you had the fine tuners to fix it. You know what I mean? So, but if you find the 4508 Japanese locking nuts, these go really well with these. Those are good ones. So anyway, that's like, I get people ask like, what Floyd should I use for that? And I tell them, well, it depends on what, you know, people kind of like to avoid the non fine tuners. And I get it. Cause to be honest, some people, they'd go psychotically insane. You have to, and I know some Floyd people, there's a few people I know that I tell that it's, if it brings you back, but if you're not a Floyd person already, like you're not really experienced, just don't get one quite yet. Make sure you know how to use one with the fine tuners first.
I remember when
They
I first
can
saw
be aggravating.
Floyd.
Yeah.
I remember when I first saw Floyd, I was like, what are all those knobs doing on there? And it was, it had a, it's not the first time I saw one. It's the first time I really kind of was interested in them. And I was asking about it was a PB Wolfgang. I actually still have it. And there was a detune on it. And I'm like, well, what's that? He's like, well, you pull it out and it, you know, detunes the strings. I'm like, oh. So you go from, you know, normal tuning to half step down. And he's like, no, you just, you know, it's one thing like that. And it was such a complicated looking thing to me. You know, it was really weird. And then, you know, of course, after playing with it, you know, I know how to. A lot of people still have problems changing strings on a Floyd, and I get it. And I was never, I was always dive bomb all in. I never was a floating guy. So with that, I can understand, you know, stuff like that. But man, once I got it, it's the best, you know.
With Floyd Rose, you know, there's so many videos on YouTube you can watch now that show you exactly how to. If you're doing okay, if you're like Eddie, you know, he didn't have it floating, right? He had it he had a block. So it's just so that makes it even easier. So you don't have to really mess with the string tension like crazy to get it super. So like that makes it so much easier right there if you're gonna set it up like that anyway. You know what I mean? And
I actually have locking tuners on one of my main guitars because I just put the string in there, put it under the under the string retainer, and then put it through the locking nut. So it's all basically just one continuous thing, and then just start tuning them up because it's locking. I mean, it's so simple. It's really easy. It's actually easier to tune or restring than let's just say a normal Fender, because Fender Strat, you got to go through the back, you got to go through up. Sometimes it's difficult to get the string in the hole, and then you got to go like that, and then you finally get it up, and then you go over here, and then you got to go around, and then you put it in there, and then well, how many windings do I have to do? Well, I got to cut it off about 2 or 3 inches about and then keep winding. So it's once you get the hang of it, man, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, it's just look on YouTube. Like there's so many resources on there right now, and you can learn so much. If you want to learn guitar and how to work on guitars, how to set them up, go on YouTube. Ed's Tech. What's that? Tom? He showed how he set up. Yeah, he shows how he set up Ed's guitar. Boom, right?
Yeah.
Like so, it's
I know
so
it's
cool.
a 45 minute video on how to set up Frankie.
It's like there. Like if I had that when I was 14, that'd have been so awesome.
Then Chip did how Ed used to do the the 78.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he's like, yeah, Ed uses the titanium inserts on this, and then like, there's so much resources to go. So, if you got it properly, the Floyd Rose is still the best when it comes in. Like, if you got a good double locking trem, it's gonna stay in tune. If your wood isn't stable, is really stable, it's gonna stay in tune forever. Like Reb Beach says, he hasn't tuned his guitar. He's got those Sir guitars. He says he hasn't tuned them in 8 months. Sometimes he brings it out of the case, it's in tune 8 months later. Like, if it's properly set up, but the wood's got to be stable and all that stuff. And there's all other details, but it's still the double locking trem. It's here to stay, and Ed was part of that development process, and it's still around. It's a cool part of history.
Nice.
Vital part of history.
Yeah, exactly. It really is.
Yeah,
and like I said earlier, though, it's like Tesla versus Edison.
Yeah,
how everything just evolved because of the competition, but they were in such a hurry that some of them they didn't even take the notes, and like you said, they were just doing it.
Yeah.
And even the Wolfgang's, the lock nut was huge in itself, right? And even on the Wolfgangs now, the stop tail pieces, they have the fine tuners, but they still have the locking nut on there. Even that's a huge improvement too. I mean, those should never go out of tune either. So I mean, there's not just the tremolo, but the whole locking device is really Really
and now Wolf's going to be doing one with the 24 fret version. So yeah,
I'm really
5150 series.
Yeah, 5150
Yeah.
series 24 fret.
I'm really curious on that. I'm excited to see where that's going to go. Yeah. And those are great guitars too. A lot of that stuff. It's I'm always excited to see what they got in store. I think they're taking notice to this older stuff too. This really, like I'm really curious where they're gonna go with the future in this. Is Floyd, are they going to make an FRT one? Will they release in the 5150? That's awesome. So what's, they still got a cold rolled steel sustain block or hot rolled. All these blocks, they don't got the ones I'd played. They got to do that. There's some guys that make them up, like Mike and a few others, but I'm really surprised. Like no one like Floyd, like these other places that never made it with steel. That's really interesting because that's all he played on the Frankenstrat 5150. It's all, for Frankenstrat till 96 anyway. So yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. Then he went with that weird, small, short brass block for some reason. Yeah, the new Wilkinson's got those locking saddles on. That's really
that's a good one. Yep. Yeah, that I know what you're talking. Yeah, this Pete. Yeah, Pete Thorne's. That's
locking tuners.
Yeah, that's a cool one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one.
Pete Thorne's another guy. He's just like, yeah.
Yeah.
You can put down the shirt and you won't need it ever again to tune it. For another year.
His eruption instructional on that was incredible. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Required reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of great new trims out nowadays. Yeah, lots of cool ones. I'm always looking at cool, innovative ones and something different. Yeah, but can't go wrong with just original Floyd. But there's a lot of cool ones on the market. I'm always, but a lot of plain old Strat trim. If you're just doing a little bit, it's fine too. And the Wilkinsons. Yeah, it all depends on the style too. Like it comes down to, what's nice about the Wilkinsons, like they're smaller on the guitar, not quite as nice, which is why I like the FRT 4s. They don't take up so much room. That's one thing I don't like about the FRT 5s. They take up. You can really notice them, right? Whereas the FRT 4s, you don't. Same with the FRT 1s and 3s. Yeah, the Fiat trims, those are nice.
I think that's what made him great, though. It was like he wanted to be small. He didn't want people to notice it. He didn't want that, but. The whale tail and the way and how big it is. I mean, that's like,
it's more practical. Yeah.
You don't even need a name on it. You already know it's a Floyd Rose. It's very,
distinguishable. Yeah, it's definitely distinguishable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But the FRT 4, it gets the job done. It's a neat little trim and it sounds amazing. But it only existed for 4 months.
Yep.
There's probably very, very few in existence. Yeah, that's another collectible one.
But it was a very vital 4 months in Eddie's existence.
Yeah, it was.
I mean,
it was
that tour was so huge.
Yeah.
And he had such a great sound, and he could just destroy that guitar.
Yeah.
Every solo that he did. I mean, look at the Largo solo that he does. Mm-hmm. It didn't matter. It still came back in,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had issues with that. He was getting sick of the FRT 1. In some interviews, you can hear him say that, because it go to that tune because there's humidity. They still got all that humidity and stuff flying around, and you gotta. He says he has to unclamp it and then unclamp it back up. And David Lee Roth is like, "What are you doing, man?" Like he says that in interviews, like, "Let's go." So he was getting annoyed with it near the end because of that, and that's why I think he really wanted those fine tuners. That he was really looking into that, and like with FRT 1, yeah, if those non-locking fine tuners, if your guitar isn't the woods, it's got to be really super stable. If it's not, if you go to like humid environments or temperature fluctuations, you're gonna have issues. Yeah.
And with Van Halen shows, it's always going to be a sweat fest.
Yeah, and that time that Frankster took a lot of abuse by then too, and he was always changing necks out on it, right? So like, there's one photo with him with the FRT 1 saddles all the way in front because I forgot what boogie body neck. I think it was like some kind of round heel one, so like he couldn't put it all in, so the saddles are all the way forward, so it wasn't even hanging off. So like he's putting all these different necks on it, so you don't know the stability of what's in the neck pocket and. So I can see why he was probably really itching to get the fine tuners on that thing,
Yeah, and he approached Floyd 3-4 times just about the fine tuners alone.
Yeah,
a few times. Yep. And I don't know if they were still working out different details as far as how they're gonna make it happen or where they wanted it. Darren always talked about the time when I think they put on the nut or something or. Somebody came up with fine tuners on the nut, and he's like, "That's great, but I don't want it there."
Yeah, was it Petulat involved in the nut tuners?
Not that Petulat was involved. So what Eddie said, Petulat told me
he put a TP6 on an FRT 1 base plate with different saddles. So he basically combined a fine tuning hardtail with a tremolo.
Yeah, that's what it was, and it was pretty crude. And he admitted that, and he's like, "Yeah, the Floyd was a lot better." But he gave so that's what he did and gave it to Eddie. And what were we? So you're talking about the fine tuners with the locking nut. That's another mystery. So supposedly, and Eddie gave this interview where he wanted the fine tuners, and the fine tuners were at the locking nut, much like Fender. Fender made something called the Fender Fine Tune Lock Nut, and there's also something called the ESP My Device, where you tune it, but it was at the locking nut, and Ed's like, well, what is this? This is not what I wanted. I don't want, because and they had an Allen wrench. She had tuned like an Allen wrench, and I guess Ed didn't like that, and then he kept on developing it. I wrote an article on that if you read on the website somewhere, and it's pretty interesting. But he's still developing. They were still developing this fine tuning thing. And he's in development. He wrote the patent in March 1982. So he was completed with the FRT4 in March 1982 for sure, because that's when he must have had it a little before that. But I think that's the time. I think Floyd Rose got in this accident, right? And this motorcycle accident, and then I think right around the time Berardi was involved, and the Kramer deal was going on, and all this stuff was happening at once. And so that happened, and Floyd Rose was maybe recovering. And then when he finally had it ready, he was still with Fernandez. He was at the booth, and then he finally completed it. But I think there's a lot of weird things going on in the background. I think that the Kramer deal maybe this motorcycle accident maybe took him behind a little bit. And they're like, well, what are we going to do? And so we don't really know the full story, but there's just so much going on. Who knows? So yeah, it's interesting. But yeah.
I think Floyd went in there with a plan, though, immediately. In '82 in Atlanta.
Well, I'm sure when he's seen the Rockinger.
The Rockinger, yeah.
Well, if he had the FRT4 and he's seen the Rockinger, I'm sure he's like, hey, I got something better than this. And he already worked with Eddie already with the Floyd Rose. Right? Eddie was playing the Floyd since late 78, early or 79. So they worked together. He knew Floyd for 4 years already, before that. And they got there, and he's like at the Fernandez booth, hey, I got this fine tuning thing done. This is far better than this Rockinger. It's made out of brass. Check this out. And he must have convinced him, because 3 weeks later, he's playing it, the FRT4. Yep. It's right after in Atlanta when he's they're promoting it at the booth. Ed's there, all these Kramer people there promoting the Eddie Van Halen tremolo, Rockinger, yada yada. And then 3 weeks later, he's playing the FRT4. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. Next thing you know, it's loads of posting pictures of him.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It happened there at NAMM.
Yeah, I think so. The rest was history. They still, I think, signed a contract with Rockinger. They must have had a Rockinger thing going on, but then and then they started producing the Whale. Interestingly enough, I think the Hansen Metalworks who made it, it seems like he got everything he got in was in millimeters, which tells me he actually possibly got something in Japanese from the effort. So that's why the FRT5 might have possibly been developed in Japan, because when he got the blueprint, supposedly when he talked, it was all in millimeters. So I thought that was interesting.
Because everything before that was all imperial. Yeah.
Yeah. So that gives a little hint that maybe the Japanese were involved a fair amount in the development of the Floyd Rose. Honestly, they could have been. So it's interesting. We'll never know the whole story.
But until the next picture comes out.
Yeah, until the next picture comes out.
That's right.
And we're going to do another show about this too within the next year.
Yeah, for sure. Who knows what we'll find next time?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know we're still diving deep, and this has been a freaking phenomenal show. Thank you so much, boys.
Cool, man.
Yeah, guys.
Thank you very much. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love talking Van Halen. I love talking Floyd. I love talking to you guys. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's all fun, man.
This has been great. Michael and Darren, thanks so much for being here. I guess we're going to wind things down. Let me, Keith, let me do a couple of announcements before we thank our guests properly. So Saturday night, coming up this Saturday, Show Me Your Pick. We're going to show you a bunch of guitar picks from Ron Wood. We're going to have a special guest here. Ben Coombs will be in the house with us.
Yeah, man. My Canuck brother.
Show Me Your Pick 138, Ron Wood, right here. Yeah. So both of these guys' sites are down in the description of the show. There is a YouTube link also there. Go check out these sites. So you guys probably know our friend Neil. He was here last time you guys were here. Neil couldn't be with us tonight. He was racing home. Didn't want him racing home, but if you want to huddle up with somebody on a build, Neil is your guy. His links are down below. You want custom guitar picks made, our friend Greg at Legend Picks, he certainly will take care of you. His links are down there too. You want a cigar box guitar style done, hey, with your logo on it. Looks sharp, wouldn't it? Brendan B. Squared, his links are always down below. Yeah.
He makes the best stuff too. I still want a cigar box guitar with the kill switch on it. The one that Liddy Lou has. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a
She's
couple
got the best
of
one
his.
out of that batch. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I got one right there.
Yeah. You got that one, and then you got the Frankenstripes one in your new remodeled guitar room.
Cigar box bass.
Yeah.
Cigar box with a bass neck on it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I love all the questions too. So it was good to answer some of these questions from everybody. You know, I just want to say hi to a couple of guys I know. Robert Ranford, I think, said hi, and it's just tough to get to everybody. So, you know, a lot of these guys I don't know.
And the chat's been rolling extremely well tonight.
Yeah.
It's been flowing like the water.
Right. Caffeine Carl, good to see you.
Yeah.
Welcome. Everybody in the chat, Lenny Lou, Dan in New Jersey, the guys from Under the Bus.
Yep.
Shame we can't watch them, but they're on the same time as we are, so they finished up. Good to see you guys. We'll catch your replay on the rebound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Always
Mr.
a pleasure
Bent
watching
Tom,
those knuckleheads.
always good to see you, my brother. Yeah. Always good to see you, Tommy.
Yeah.
All right, kids.
All right, guys. It was nice talking with you.
Michael McGuire, thanks for being here, dude. Always good to see you. Darren Drewek, sir, good to see you, man.
Yep. Nice seeing you guys.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Stick around for afterwards, real quick.
Yeah, hang out in the green room. We're gonna roll things down here. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe here if you're not already. Check to see that you are. We are growing right along. We talk Van Halen here every single Wednesday. Thanks for being here. Keith, we're out of here, dude. All roads lead to Van Halen, baby.
Yes, they do, my brother.
All right.
Yes, they do.
All right, guys.
See you. Be safe. Have a great week.
You too.
Peace.